Now we're live without Joe shenanigans. Hi, welcome to the Roundabout cast,
Hello.
Yay!
episode 23, I think.
Classic edition.
Classic edition.
I'm your
What, we're all
host,
wearing suits, but you can't
Classic
see.
Willer.
I am Chimera Bradley, the product of the Chimera Ant Queen eating Bradley and pooping me out.
What animal are you mixed with?
I'm Chimera Ant Bradley. I'm just Bradley form.
Okay, well, that's kind of lame, but alright.
I'm Space Western Vintage Joe.
Very good. These
Yes.
are all, well, they're all mostly applicable. Actually, speaking of that, our first topic, well, I'll mention that special guest Tyler couldn't make it, and if he made it one more episode, I was going to grant him the title of regular guest Tyler
Oh no.
for breaking his 3-episode streak, but he tied it, so I guess we'll see what happens in the future.
So he goes back to special guest Tyler now, and once he beats it, he has to get to 4 basically.
Once he gets to 4, he can become regular guest Tyler.
Correct.
But Joe, why don't you tell us about the Outer Worlds, which I'm actually really interested to hear about this one.
Yes. So I'm gonna put up a disclaimer very quickly that I have not beaten the Outer Worlds yet. I've put in like several hours into it, so like I'll probably come back again when I finish it. But I just want to give this is like kind of my first impressions and how I feel right now coming to somebody that has played Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4 and all that kind of jazz. So we're gonna start off with like kind of discussing why this game is important to a lot of Fallout fans, especially Fallout New Vegas fans.
Fallout boys, you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a long time ago, in the ages of I probably wasn't old enough to speak sentences or like play video games properly. Fallout 1 and 2 came out and they were made by Black Isle Studios. They were isometric games, they were RPGs, they were set in the Fallout universe. Like they were pretty much like cult classic hits for RPG players. I don't know the whole history of it. I believe Bethesda ends up buying Black Island Games or gets a contract with them basically, and Bethesda makes Fallout 3, the sequel to Fallout 2.
Which, Fallout, much like the Persona series, starts at 3.
Yes. and Fallout 3 is completely different. It's a first-person game that's a hybrid of first-person shooter, open world, RPG systems, and the biggest one being VATS, the various like stats that you can increase and decrease, and the perk system that allows you to basically get like not necessarily superpowers, but like abilities that can be very beneficial to you.
VATS is a very accurate targeting system.
Yes, VATS is
Clever.
essentially the way that allows you to transition from a
Real time.
real time first person to almost turn based, but not really. I'll probably get into that later when I talk about what Outer Worlds does. So, anyways, Fallout 3 comes out, and then the people at Black Island are like, "Oh, we want to make our own Fallout game," and they made Fallout New Vegas. And when they made the game, the big thing that people took away from it, from like the mainstay crowd, was that it was very buggy and very glitchy when it came out. It wasn't really that stable. They introduced some patches that made it work and made it better. But the people who had played the game and had played the fixed version, they immediately learned that Fallout New Vegas is a lot more intricate compared to Fallout 3 when it came to its storylines and the way that things were woven into each other. And so it made a point in Fallout New Vegas where you could cut yourself off from completing certain quest lines depending on which side you ended up joining. In Fallout 3, this had it too, but not as much as New Vegas did. Like there were multiple times where like you would be going down a quest line and you suddenly, because of what faction quest line you were going into, you would realize you were entering at an intersection point of another quest line for another faction, but on the other side. If you went back and played the other way, you could see where those things matched up, and you could see how you could intervene at those other section points. Like it was very much, there was a lot of interwoven storytelling throughout this entirety of the game. So Fallout 4 comes out, and they basically dumb it down a lot when it comes to the role-playing settings, and just kind of focus on crafting and shooting and that's kind of basically it comparatively.
That
Um,
game, from what I understand, was not very well liked.
it like the game is fun, I think, but it just like whenever I played the game, I was just like, man, this is fun to play. Like on a terms of like, oh, I get my gun, it does damage. That's as fun. I can like really kind of min max what I want to do, but sorry, but from perspective of like playing a role playing game, it was a failure. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, so people were very upset with that. People at Black Island even ended up leaving that studio and go and join Obsidian Entertainment, which makes games like Pillars of Eternity, Tyrant. I'm forgetting another big game of theirs, but like they make a lot of like isometric RPG games like Fallout. So this was their answer base. This is their spiritual successor to Fallout New Vegas. And like from what I've like from playing the game is basically what Fallout should have evolved into, essentially. Like it's like I literally like look at Fallout 4 and I look at the Outer Worlds and it looks like I'm looking at a split timeline of what could have been. It's
Yeah,
really weird.
it's kind of like Outer Worlds, even though like obviously I don't know nearly as much about it as you would,
Yeah.
but like I remember whenever that like first trailer came out, there was kind of instantly a certain level of hype for it.
Yes.
And when you say like spiritual successor to Fallout New Vegas, I can just imagine like every Fallout fan flipping out at those words.
Yeah. And the thing is like I wasn't like overly hyped about the game. Like I was like, "Oh, that looks good." I like based on what I've seen so far in like the interviews, it seems like they kind of know what they're doing and they know what and like from Fallout New Vegas, they know what their strong points were and they're just transitioning into it. And I kind of got the game because I was like, why not? One night, I think I was slightly intoxicated, so I just bought it.
Classic
and
Joe.
yeah, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna play it. And I played it, and I was like, man, this is like it feels great. Like it feels like I'm playing actually Fallout again, comparatively to Fallout 4. Like
It's made on Unreal Engine, so it must be nice to play like a Fallout style game in an engine that isn't fuck busted.
yes, that's another thing too. Like this game has no arrogance in it, basically, which is funny compared to like the trailer that they had like from the creators of Fallout after like Bethesda's Fallout 76 like disaster
Yeah.
kind of thing. But like when you play this game, it definitely feels like heart and soul was put into this game of like we know what to take out, we know these things that like that are part of Fallout or part of Fallout that kind of made it charming unique, but we're going to cut them out because it's going to make the game better overall, and make it more stable and more fun. And it just whenever like it's one of those games where like I won't play it for a while and then I'll turn it on and I'll play it and I'll play it for hours. I'm like, this game is so much fun. Like I just love being a part of it. I love doing it. I love the atmosphere part of it about it, and it feels great. That's my general impressions. I'm just gonna dive into more about what the game actually is about. So the game is set in an alternate timeline where um where the president before Franklin Delano Roosevelt didn't die and got a second term basically or continued his term. He allowed all of these different companies that were huge to get even bigger, which on one hand sped up like the scientific process, but made everything just a capitalistic dystopia
Yeah.
essentially.
I'm super excited about that because I heard about this game's setting and like how
Mhm.
its tone, and I really want to get your take on that.
So the best description I ever got for this game was this game is Fallout with Firefly put into it with a sprinkling of Bioshock, which is
Mm.
just great.
So it's a
And-
Joe game, huh?
yes. And so like it has this very space western feel. The guns do have a very reminiscent of the steampunky looking western type guns. Everyone's got like bowler hats on and has like crazy ass mustaches. And it's kind of weird too because a lot of the people also have like pixie cut hair and dyed hair. So it's you get this old setting, but it has a good enough like modern like touch and flavor to it that you can relatively think like, oh, this is the future. It's just like a
Regressed.
different form of it. It feels like a future you would see in a Disney movie almost, which makes it even better because it's kind of like this. Let's take an old timey looking, an old version, like a past like setting, but make it more futuristic, and it kind of gives this cool, like familiar but also different setting. Um, but the use, but like so you are essentially the survivor of a colony ship that was being sent out to this system called the Halcyon system, and it basically its warp drive failed or whatever, and it's been just drifting in space for 70 plus years. Um, Eventually, this guy finds you, and it's like, this is terrible. Companies should not be allowed to just leave people to die in space. You're gonna help me do it. And he basically unfreezes you and like sends you on this quest to like get enough stuff to fix the ship and get everyone on board alive again and to the colonies itself. To kind of just like stick it to the man, basically. Um, so you're the guy literally shoves you into a drop pod and is like, here's what you have to do, and pulls the lever, and you're just on your first planet, and you're just like, well, I guess I'll go do this now. It kind of like shoves it down the throat of like what your motivation is, and like that's the one kind of negative I have so far is that like there's not really a big motivator for you to like do the main quest. But I love doing the main quest, but like it's not like in Fallout 3 where your dad escapes and you're on the run and you're just like, the only connection I have to this world is my dad and I have to go find him kind of thing. Like it's your only path of survival.
I was gonna say Fallout 3 and 4 have pretty weak motivation, so if it's below that,
it's weird because you ended up like, I ended up being like, yeah, I'll just do it, and I just kind of went and do it. But it's kind of hard for me to justify like doing that out of the goodness of my heart after just waking up from 70 years of sleep. Because imagine what you being asleep for 70 years, and someone goes like, hey, it's been 70 years, you're in the future, I need you to save everyone. I think that's a little bit much.
Yeah, like let me read the news first.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the basic premise, is that you're trying to get this shit back online, and you make a lot of moral decisions along the way. So right off the bat, when you're creating your character, like the skill system in this game, I was already in love with, because they hit a perfect medium of not having it be like super number heavy, like, but also giving you those numbers. So basically what happens at the beginning is you have a set of stats, like you have strength, dexterity, charisma, leadership, and defense. And rather than associate that number, they allow you to make it average, above average, or you can take away stats, so you can make like your strength below average, but that gives you another stat point essentially to make something else above average or even superior.
I like that.
So it's like, which number one is like, great. This is what role playing is about. It's about understanding what your character is going to be and what he's going to specialize in. Like that's the number one thing about role playing games. It's the role in role playing games.
Right.
So then after you do that, you get introduced to, it shows you all the skills for each different stat. So like your dexterity has one-handed guns, long-range guns, heavy guns, and your strength has like one-hand weapons and two-hand weapons, like, you know, generic stuff. So what makes it really cool is whenever you level up, you just level up, you basically select the stat category and you level that up, and levels all the skills in that stat until that skill hits 50, in which you only individually level up that skill. So like if I'm going a gun build, I'll level up dexterity, but as soon as like my one-handed gun gets leveled up to 50, I have to only invest in one-handed guns if I want to make them better, or I invest in the dexterity stat again, but it only levels up my long-range gun and my heavy guns. So it allows you to have both a very broad sense of what you can be doing, but also allows you, it allows you to not to kind of be a jack of all trades kind of dude, but it also allows you to be very narrowly focused on what you can do.
Yeah,
so like,
I heard that later on you get to narrow down those stats even more. But like it's cool that it front loads you with options and letting you be broad. And then
Yeah.
later in the game, when you find out what you really like, you get to specify more.
Yeah, it's a great way of like creating this funnel system for your role playing game because it allows you to like try out everything, and as you play the game more, you get to invest in more specific things, and allows you to create your character as a single unique entity essentially,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome. It's great. The other thing they have is perks, which is carried over from Fallout, and basically just every other level you get a perk, and it's like increased carrying capacity, increased health, increased damage for your companions, all that kind of like stuff, which is neat. But what makes it so cool is that as you're playing the game, you can develop flaws for your character.
Oh, that's dope.
So, for example, like there was these things called primals, or like these big monkey things, and I would fight them, and I would like go to low health all the time. I would just be sucking on like medicine packs, and I'd be like, Jesus Christ, these things are hard. And after like doing that for a while, the game was like, would you like to pick up a flaw for this species? If you do, you get a free perk point, but you take some negative penalties whenever you fight these things because I have like primal phobia. So, and I've seen ones where like people will get flaws from like jumping, like height phobia because they jump off of tall things and injure themselves all the time. So the guy,
Dark
it's
Souls
just
2 style.
yeah. So I'm like, that's a great way of like making a character even more unique. It's like, oh, I have a flaw against like robots. I do really bad against robots, but you know what? I got a perk that allowed me to carry 50 more pounds of stuff, so it was well worth it. And it feels great because it feels like your character's unique and it's your own thing, and like the character I make won't be the same as Willer and can just completely different in the way we build things, and it's awesome. I think I love all the companions I've met. I've met every single one of them now. I think they're all great. There are some companions where I ran into was like, I'm not gonna like this guy, and then I'm like, I love this guy, and that's basically all I ever want whenever I have people in my party. So the big thing, that they part of that spiritual successor from Fallout is they also have their own VATS called the Tactical Time Dilation System. So in VATS, what it was is basically time would stop. You would then be able to select like multiple points on an enemy, and you have a percentage of hitting that thing or not, and you shoot it, and it can damage that limb or body part or so forth. What tactical time dilation does is that it slows down time, and it allows you to aim at different body parts like freehand. It's not like you're like moving like section to section, but you get to like
kind slow mo.
Yeah. But what I like about this version of tactical time dilation much more than that is that when you shoot somebody in tactical time dilation at a certain body part, it incurs a status effect on them. If I go in tactical time dilation and shoot someone in the legs, it makes them move slower. How I had to fight those primals was I would have to go in tactical time dilation, shoot all of their legs so they would slow down, so it gave me enough time to shoot them and kill them essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me really actually strategize how I'm fighting these creatures or enemies, rather than in Fallout where every time I felt like I'm just going to aim for the chest or head because that's what I can see and that will give me the most damage.
I was going to say, like, I played Fallout 3 and maybe this is high level strats that I didn't understand, but I always felt like you should just aim for the head. Plus you had the highest hit chance on like the head and chest.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's how I felt too. And like it never felt worth it to aim for the legs or for the arms or anything other than for shits and giggles. But this is like, oh, I need to shoot this guy's arms because it's gonna more likely make it so he misses me when he swings at me with the bat.
It's Monster Hunter. You gotta break Barrioth's swings so that he falls over when he jumps.
Yeah. And it's just like that's what that should be. Like it should be I have to make a conscious decision to try and impede this person so it's easier for me to kill him or it stops him from killing me. So I've really enjoyed it a lot. And that was one of the things that I was kind of hesitant about because I liked that and being that selection and having it be different options and whatever. But this feels like whenever I shoot it, it feels like an actual choice.
That's good.
Yeah. So I'm going to go into like this. So I'm going to talk about like the choices and dialogues now. And this is going to require a spoiler, I think, for like the first part of the game. Because I just want to tell you all about it because I thought like this is a great opening like moral decision in this game. It really sets the tone of like this is what your moral dilemma or this is what's your overarching like theme throughout this entire game is going to be. So, like just be prepared for that kind of deal. And so I just thought I'd just throw it out there right now. So when the first planet you land on is it's called Terra 2, and you land next to a city called Edgewater, which is an incorporated city that is literally there just to make sardine cans. Like that's its whole purpose. Is that people there make sardines, they put them into cans, and then they ship it out to the rest of the colony. That's their one thing that they do. Basically, they have a bunch of like they have a general store and a barber. That's more of there for the people there. It's not like a commodity that they sell. And you learn that your ship that you're going to use to get off the planet, its reactor is busted. I forget what the actual term is, but the part you need is broken. But Edgewater has one. So you go in there and you talk to the mayor, and the mayor's like, well, we only have one, and it powers the entirety of our city, so we can't give it to you. But there's a second group of people that are all the way out and like that were deserters from our city, and they have their own reactor. So you should take their reactor, and that will make them come back to us. And so you go out there, you have this whole moral decision dilemma of, and for a while, like I was going into this, like, oh, I'll go out there and I'll talk to them so I can get the other half of the quest, which is I go back to the other city, and I just take their reactor instead, and I give it to the other people. And I get there, and my companion was the one that changed my mind, which never happens to me in these games. And she goes like, I think you should. And like the whole time you're talking to this girl, you know that she like really doesn't like the corporate cities. She doesn't think it's good. She thinks what they're doing, like they're very immoral, like people. So I'm coming up to the part where I'm about to like unlock the location, or I'm about to basically go into the room where it's going to have the power like generator that I need to take out. And as I walk up there, she's like, I know we've talked a lot about this. I don't think you should shut off Edgewater's power. And I was just taken aback. I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, and she explained to me that if you turn off the power, I should back up a little bit. So the colony that you go to that has this other reactor, it's very much like a hippie colony that has homegrown its foods and has become very organic. And it's a very small community, and it's able to sustain itself, which is something that Edgewater basically can't do. It relies on the other corporate cities to do so. So they have basically been able to become independent. And so we're at this junction of like, which city's power should I shut off? She goes, you can't turn off Edgewater's power because if they go to the small community, all those people will die because that community can only survive because it's so small. And it's just like, well, shit, you're kind of right. That if...
But then if you take their power, they die anyways because they don't need the power anymore now that they're self-sufficient.
No, they need the power because it helps them grow their plants. But if you take the power from the other community, it forces them to join the bigger city, and the bigger city can support them.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it very much was like a logical, like, if you shut off the power to the small community, they will be able to live with the bigger community, even if they don't like it. But if you shut off the big community, sure, that sticks it to the man, but you're probably going to kill a lot of people that live in that city because that small community can only survive and sustain itself because it's so small. It's just a small, like, farming village, basically. So imagine like a small farming village gets a huge influx of people that they suddenly have to feed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not going to work. And I was just like, wow, you're right.
Good point, partner.
Yeah. And I ended up like switching off the community's power and being like, you've got to go back home. Like, that's how you're going to live. And I was just like, that was a good choice. Like, at least in my opinion, of really making you think about like what's truly right. Like, destroying something that's morally wrong, or letting people live, or having people do something they don't like but allows them to live. You know, it's not necessarily like the wrong, like one doesn't feel like the right answer to me. You know,
mm-hmm.
like you feel guilty about whichever way you do it, which I really appreciate. I've done a few more that have been like that, and I'm just like everything they've done so far. The writing has been great. I've just really enjoyed it in general. So, I how many hours do I have on this? Oh no. Oh no, I don't want to do that. Oh shit.
Joe, put your porn away, please.
No, I was trying to see how many hours I have on this, but I don't think the Epic Library, the Epic Store tells me.
Is this only in the Epic Store?
For computers, it is only in the Epic Store. You can get it for PlayStation.
PlayStation it is. Yeah, I'll probably pick this. I don't even like Fallout that much, but
yeah,
just from the tone and how everything in this game is like depressing and a bummer, and it's like the end point of consumerism. I'm like, yeah, I'm down for that at a sale.
Yeah, and like the game is also funny. Like the intro to the game, I thought was pretty funny, and there's a lot of juxtaposition jokes and all this. It's well written, and it's a great time for me, I think. And I just every time I talk to somebody or interact with somebody or read something, it's just fun. Like it's not a drag to do anything in this game. It feels like
Good stuff.
yeah. I don't
think
know how I
that's
feel about the end. I might just be like, this game was shit. I hate the ending. But I've heard like tons of other reviewers saying like, I finished the game, I immediately want to go back and play it again. So yeah,
Game of the year. You heard it here first.
I don't know. That'll come next month.
Worst, yeah. Worst part of this game is that it sounds too close to the Outer Wilds, and I fucking always get confused.
Yeah.
That's not cool. Not cool,
Yeah.
guys. All right.
Not cool. But yeah, the game's great. If you liked any of the Fallout games, just pick up Outer Worlds. It's like a no-brainer. You're gonna like it, I think, regardless.
I wanted to take a quick time to talk about Ring Fit Adventure because I feel like people are sleeping on this game, on this product.
It is like weirdly amazing.
I think I was with many others who looked at Nintendo Switch's dumb ring, and we thought this is really silly. This
and also
is like
the psychopathic, perfect-looking people in their trailer.
yeah, I mean that's a Nintendo staple, but it's I just looked at that ring and I said this is just classic Nintendo gimmicky shenanigans, and then like the reviews started coming out. And I just had to hear just a little bit about its actual effectiveness and like it actually being a fun game at the same time. Where I was like, "All right, you don't have to tell me twice. Like I'll just try it out." And Bradley went to a GameStop. He picked one up for both of us, and now we are Pillarmen.
Yeah, you would not recognize this. I can't even fit through my door anymore. The muscles are too huge.
You wouldn't recognize us to begin with because I don't think we've ever seen us. But
Ooh, get ready for face reveal special.
just look up Cars JoJo's. That's me now. No, but a really so this game. How far are you, Bradley? I think I'm in World 2.
That's where I am also, and like this game kicks your ass physically. Actually,
Yeah, it's you can alter the difficulty in it. So the thing is, if you're someone who is super active, who works out all the time and does a lot of cardio all the time, I wonder how effective this would be for you. But for someone like me who hates having to drive over to the gym and who only sometimes goes to his apartment gym, I'm like, this is way better than a gym membership, and I actually want to do it. And it's the kind of workouts I like, which is just all sorts of like aerobic exercises. So this is pretty freaking neat.
it's funny because like, you know, the first few days after it came out, obviously you have all the Let's Players like, I'm gonna play Ring Fit Adventure. This will be funny. And then like 20 minutes into it, they're like,
Oh,
oh
fuck.
shit! Like I'm burning right now.
I watched Vinny Vinesauce stream it. He did the first 3 levels all in one, and he was dead by the end.
Yeah, what a champ.
And he put it on like the second to lowest difficulty.
Yeah.
So I jumped straight into the hardest one because I'm like, well, if I'm gonna be unlazy and play this, I might as well get the most out of each playthrough, and it's kicking my ass real hard to the point where like I can only do 1 or 2 levels each time I play, but I also get really motivated to come back.
Yeah,
Um,
like you're on a harder difficulty than I am, and like after I clear a level, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I don't want to think about what Willer had to go through for
I
this.
I was an idiot who like when I came back the second time, I was like, okay, we can turn it up a bit, and then
Woo.
they turned it up 3 notches, and
Oh,
I had to fight the boss with that difficulty, and then I turned it back the next time.
yeah. And like speaking of bosses, it's so cool because after a fight in this game, you're like actually physically exhausted in real life. Like the day I beat the first boss later that afternoon, like my shoulders and my abs were sore, and I was like, "Holy fuck, that boss took it out of me."
I mean, maybe we're just big pussies, but also consider that this is a neat product. Like it has a lot of good stat tracking. Like you could go back and look at every single squat and ring press and like leg tuck in, whatever knee to chest you've done. You unlock more and more workouts, and you keep track of all of them. You keep track of how many like calories it thinks you've burned. I feel like it's hard to say. That it's very rough estimates.
Yeah,
Um,
it's kind of impressive all the stuff it's able to keep track of, and like you said, like there's no way to know like how accurate it all is, but it seems pretty it seems like they know what they're doing.
I think the most impressive is that the fact that they can take your heart rate from your Joy-Con.
Yeah,
What?
dude.
What? It's like you put your thumb around the IR sensor, and somehow that's supposed to give you your heart rate.
I mean, that's what the Apple Watch does. That's on my wrist. It's an IR sensor, and it reads the pulse off of that.
That's crazy, dude. Technology.
Science!
Science. It is $80, but I think that's better than a gym membership if you're not a super frequent goer. Really interesting stuff to come out of this is videos of people going with their trainers and trying it out, and the trainers are like, you know what, this is a solid workout, and if anything, it can get you more active, so you can also go to the gym on top of it. Which not likely I'll do that anytime soon, but I'll enjoy my Ring Fit.
Yeah, like even this by itself seems like a pretty good workout. Like if you're not gonna do anything else, at least do this. Like,
We haven't explained, but the game portion of it is
yeah,
engaging.
it's not like I think there's like a temptation to think of it as Wii Fit, where it's like, oh, you open it up and you do yoga poses for 15 minutes, and then there you go. But this is an RPG, and there's like actual like an actual degree of level design to these levels where
It's a platformer too. It's actually kind of really. I did this level where you're a swamp, and you have to do either high knees or deep squats to like trudge through the swamp.
yeah.
And I was like,
And
this is neat.
there are some levels that like have jumps, and in some of these levels, like if you miss the jump or if you don't hold the ring in long enough, you'll fall down and take like a slightly different path. It's really interesting.
There's a bunch of battles, and these battles, like, they are no joke. They're gonna make you do a lot of reps per enemy.
Yeah,
And
like the boss fight was hard enough, and then like I don't know, you get to World 2 and you're like, okay, we got some normal enemies here, and you're
no, there's 2 now. Fuck you.
like oh god.
It
Uh,
was. I dare say this might be the most immersive RPG ever made because
you're actually doing it. You're doing what your character is doing.
the storyline is like your character needs to build up workout energy to attack, and you're doing the exact same attacks and moves he is. So really, you are feeling what he feels, except he looks like a buff, sweet, flame hair man, and I'm just me.
Yeah. Battles in this game are collisions of two beings exercise energy, which is manifested as these like disembodied glowing fists and feet and abs attacking your enemy.
We call it the stand because
Yeah,
it stands by you.
Exercise stand battles.
Um, really, if you're on the fence, get and you got to switch, or if you need like just something to get a little more active, give it a shot. It's really customizable because Bradley does weightlifting, but he uses this specifically to get as many like ab workouts as he can.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what other moves and workouts we get. And yeah, maybe when I finish this daunting story, I'll do a follow up on this game. But I think it's really cool.
This is the other game of the year.
It's honestly, it would make it like a solid way into the game of the year list. It's Nintendo's best gimmick, like add-on that they've ever made, in my opinion. It's really cool.
Yeah, people have tried to do fitness games, and people have tried to do fitness games before, and while they have varying degrees of success, like technically a lot of people did buy a Wii Fit. I think this is the most successful attempt of all time at a fitness game.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Nathan.
Rest in peace.
All right. That's Ring Fit, y'all. Joe, why don't you tell us about the tune-in exams?
Oh shit! I thought we were okay.
Yeah, dream on, sucker.
Yeah. So I am now. So yesterday, I finished up. Was it yesterday that I did that, or was that Monday? I don't know. This week I finished up the Force Death section of the tuning exams. I am now at the episode where Sasuke and Gaara are fighting in the tuning exams arena, and basically at the end of this fight kicks off the next arc, which is the whole Gaara invasion fucking bullshit happening fate thing. Anyways, so we're away from Zabuza now, and now our three plucky heroes are now going to be part of the tuning exams, and like it's kind of like not fair, but like every time I watch the show, I always compare it to like One Piece and the way that One Piece develops its worlds and its rules and its characters and like how it's introduced.
You say it's not fair, but they were competitors for years, so I think
true.
That's the fairest ever.
It's when you look at Naruto, I feel like there are a lot of things that are just introduced to Naruto and they're almost like thrown at you. Like the biggest one out of this whole arc is the tuning exams. You're making theories that's supposed to really make you buy into this world. Like One Piece, it wants you to buy into the Grand Line, the East and West Blue, and make you want to dissect everything that you see and like get a sense that this is a living, breathing world. It's really hard to do that when you have something as absurd as the tuning exams, in my personal opinion. And it's because like, and it's really disappointing because the first part of the tuning exams, which is the like the written test portion, is so smart, makes so much sense. It's like, oh, you're ninjas. You have to be able to gather information from your enemy without them knowing, and being able to do it as a team and not leave a team member behind while you do it. Or else, because if your team member gets captured while you're trying to like gather information, everyone's screwed.
Yeah, remind me what this is. This is like a battle to cheat, right?
Yeah, so basically they go into a room and they have 10 questions they have a 10 question test. The 10th question will be revealed to them 10 minutes before the test time is over. And the rule is you have 3 people in your team. Everyone has to pass. If one person does not pass the exam, your whole team fails. And whenever you get caught cheating, you don't fail the test. You just you lose points. And if you reach ever a threshold that makes you lose to the point where like you can't possibly pass this test, they'll kick you out. And so the whole point of this exam is basically you have to be able to gather information with or without your team, but the biggest thing is to not get caught. So that way you don't essentially like let your teammates down. That's the other kind of key part to this, where like you're not going to be the one that screws over your teammates. And it's a great idea for like the way that this works of like, oh, we have to use all of our ninja techniques. Sasuke uses his Sharingan to like copy this one student, or like a plant. There's also a bunch of plants within the test takers like room that are writing down the correct answers the entire time. So Sasuke uses his Sharingan to copy this person's like what they're doing exactly, because he realizes that they're just speeding through the test. Tintin is able to like set up a mirror system and is able to like reflect the images and like show her teammates what the answers are. Shino uses bugs to relay the answers to his teammates, and it's like, oh, this really gets to show you how like each person goes individually and how they gather information. It makes it like it feels like something you would actually test kids on to make them think about like, how do I do this job? You know what I'm saying? Without actually having to do it. Does that make sense? You're like, wow, this is a cool idea. Like, that's a really clever way of like, testing kids of like how like that aspect of a ninja. So all for that. And then we get to the Force of Death. And I think the biggest thing about the Force of Death is it's way too long. And a part of it is just boring and feels out of place and doesn't feel like it lines up with the rest of the exam, which is the Orochimaru like section of that whole thing.
Well, that's because that's not part of the exam. To be fair, that is an
Right,
interruption.
to be fair. But it kind of just ruins the mood.
Maybe because there's a second interruption later in the arc from a different party. Maybe it would have been better to not have one of those two.
Maybe. Are you talking about the Force of Death or like?
Gaara is kind of the interruption in the end.
Right.
There.
Yeah, and no, I agree. And like, it's just kind of like, it's like the Force of Death. I feel like it's just like they meet Orochimaru, and like your three heroes are just incapacitated, like are out of action for like 7 episodes or something ridiculous like that. You're just like, what the fuck? Like, it could have been anything else where like they all split up and they end up like running into other of the Rookie Nine, have to work with them, and they come together, and like we have to be able to work together as a team because that's how everyone else was able to do it. Like, you have some really cool moments, like Sakura defends Sasuke and them, and she like takes a few kunais to like the arms and the knees, and like I really liked that episode. I thought that was a cool way of like it's just a nice little Sakura like coming to terms of like, I've been doing all of these things for the wrong reason. I have to stop doing it that way, or I'll never be the actual good ninja I could possibly be. And there's some, it's just so weirdly paced, and it just was so uninteresting at most times, and it just felt like it feels like a farce almost.
It has Anko though.
It does have Anko though. Before she was Chanko.
Joe, you can't.
But like, Force of Death was it kind of like comes and goes in the blink of an eye, even though as badly paced as it was. Like, I don't remember anything about it. Like, it just was just so uninteresting to me. Like, it was like, oh yeah, they were there, they get passed out, Sasuke got cursed, Naruto got sealed.
Oh yeah, this started that whole plot line.
Yeah, it did.
I guess it was necessary then. Like, it had to happen.
But like, you could have done that at the Gaara section at the end. I just.
Let's talk about Rock Lee versus Gaara and get the fuck out of here.
So now we get to the third part of this, which is the preliminary fights. This is the part where it's like it kind of breaks that like that world building. It's just like, why on earth would you have a fighting tournament kind of deal that's just a straight up one-on-one fight for ninjas? And the point of a ninja is to not have a fair fight. Because we even see that in the previous arc with Zabuza, where whenever they're out there and they're fighting ninjas, they are doing everything they can to put the advantage in their, like, to have anything in their advantage. Like, you have ninjas ambushing them on the side of the road. You have Zabuza like faking his own death to gather more intel about Kakashi and everyone, and then coming back later with a better strategy. Like,
that's a good point. Never thought of that. Maybe it would have been better if it was 1v1s, but not in an arena, in like a different biomes and locations where you have to.
You know
get
what would be even
ninja.
cooler is that it was a 3v3 like team fight, and you had to fight another team to complete an objective before the other team does.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean that would be too cool though. Relax.
What's the point of the Force of Death? But more, by the way, the Force of Death is just basically PUBG or Fortnite before the
where we drop it again.
Because there's literally a point where Kabuto's explaining that, like, at the end of the there's a point where Kabuto's explaining how at the end of the Force of Death section, everyone gathers in the center of the arena because they try to like ambush each other and steal their scrolls, and it literally looks like a Fortnite minimap because there's a tower in the middle and there's a circle around it, and it's a bunch of arrows heading towards the middle of the circle.
I want to see fucking Gaara doing a default dance. I just want to bring up that Hunter x Hunter did Fortnite before Naruto. I think that's a sentence, and it's way cooler because they're stealing tags from each other.
Yeah. and like I just saw that and like my brain exploded. I thought it was so funny. Uh, but like it just seems so ridiculous to me that you have these like fights like, oh, we're just gonna have a fighting tournament now. It's like
No,
these other two sections made sense to be a ninja. This doesn't make any sense. You're just like asking people to brawl.
well,
Like,
hold on, Joe. Like, it does make sense that sometimes you're going to be separated from your team and you're going to meet a 1v1, which is why I think you could fix everything by just putting it in a map that's unfair, and you have to figure out how to use your environment, as opposed to like get in a ring and just fight each other.
duke it out. Because and it's funny you say that because in those tuning exam arena fights, that's how those people win. Every single one of them.
Well, then I guess they proved that they were good ninjas then.
Yeah, but putting that aside, when you get to these preliminary fights, I think after like there's a bunch of chaff fights that you go through that are just like, oh, like random sound ninja, puppet boy, who we really don't want to go into details yet what he can do. You get a lot of these really good like character like defining fights, which are awesome.
Sakura
Like,
Ino.
Yeah,
is
Sakura
a good
Ino is
one.
great. Shikamaru versus the Sound Girl is awesome because it introduces you to like his whole like play-by-play setting and like how he's different as a ninja. Even like the Naruto versus Kiba ones, tons of fun.
Uzumaki Barrage is a badass move.
It is, and I love that move because like it's a great way to show how different but similar that Naruto and Sasuke are, because Sasuke does Lee's move, but it's basically almost a 1-for-1 except for at the very end, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Naruto is like, that's a great move. I need to know how to I should do it, but I can't do it that way. So I'm going to do it my own way.
Yeah, very emblematic of Naruto.
Yes. And like that's another great character moment because it shows like how much he's able to think on his feet and not necessarily bend the rules, but find a different way of doing something.
Didn't that fight also have a mechanic where like Akamaru could pee on Naruto so he couldn't hide in the clones? Or did I make that up?
They could smell Naruto through the clones, basically.
Okay, but he didn't have to pee on him?
Maybe, I don't remember.
Was this a weird fanfic? Whatever.
Maybe it was a weird fanfic. But that whole fight's great because it shows like how like Naruto's dumb, but he's a really clever fighter. Like he's a trickster fighter, and it really showcases his ability to do that.
Yeah. Until he just digs a fucking hole with his bare hands. That's the
against
worst. Neji. Yeah, I know. I hate that. When you got to that part, right? So I can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Back when I was like a kid, I saw that in an AMV before I saw it in the show, and I was like, "Oh fuck! Naruto must have used the Earth Jutsu to go underground and punch him from below. That's so cool." No, he just fucking dug with his hands. Oh.
I think I've read that in the manga, and they actually show a close up, and all of his nails are fucking like torn up and everything.
Yeah, but you can't just.
But
animes think it's really easy to dig. JoJo's does this too.
Yeah. But like the preliminary section, I it kind of like I was in like, oh, Naruto, and I was like, oh god, forced to death. And then we got to the preliminary fights. I'm like, I'm having a great time like watching and listening to these people talk and like express like how they feel. And you get to like the Rock Lee versus Gaara, which is like basically the climax of this whole like arc, essentially. And it's a great fight because it's basically raw talent versus hard work. And showing how much hard work can really like outdo raw talent, but how much like pain goes into doing that hard work.
It's also echoed in Naruto versus Neji.
Yes.
And then it's echoed to the point where it echoes backwards. It's like, oh wait, no, Naruto, you have the god talent now. Oh, it was such a prevalent theme for the longest time. Until it wasn't.
Yeah. But like it also like this was so, but I love the preliminary fights, putting aside my whole like thought of like why did we just become Dragon Ball Z for a hot second here. I guess I could understand doing the preliminary fights as doing like a Dragon Ball Z thing, because it even explains like we didn't expect all of you to pass, so we have to narrow down the field. I can understand that. I can't understand why it continues on to the next phase.
Yeah, that is weird. They're the same phase, but just more intense.
Yeah, and so between the preliminary exams and the final exam section, you have the training kind of small arc, and like I totally forgot that you meet Jiraiya this early in this series.
Huh. I thought,
Like,
I thought it was after the exam.
Yeah, I thought it was after the tuning exam, and like when Naruto was like, I have to get stronger, and like I couldn't remember bullshit reason why he would seek out Jiraiya, but I just remember him like find like him doing Jiraiya and all that like Toad stuff, and that was entertaining. Like I like Jiraiya as a character. I have always liked those like old mentor kind of hermits ever since Obi-Wan Kenobi and Star Wars. So I was like, oh hey, look at that.
It's a shame Jiraiya would get Me Too'd in 2019.
Oh yeah, hardcore.
But he's one of my favorite characters though. I really like him.
But that's a kind of, and I realized as I was watching this more and more that I really like the parts of where you're dealing with the higher up stuff. Like I guess it's the like equal to like the world government stuff that happens in One Piece. Whenever you have Kakashi and Guy talking to each other, Jiraiya and like some other Jonin talking to each other, and they're talking about the state of things and like what's happening, like that's just cool because they get to do their cool things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Also, I want to talk about Guy for a minute here.
Ooh.
That I both hate and love Guy at the same time. It's very conflicting.
How could you hate Guy?
I guess I can't.
Yeah.
He's a great character, more and more if I think about it. And like he's rambunctious and he's flamboyant and he's crazy and goofy, but he's a really heartfelt teacher. Dude. And understands what it means to be a teacher.
Guy gets some real ass shit near the end of the series.
Yeah.
He's great.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, right now I'm on the Sasuke versus Gaara part, and then we have the Gaara attack. I forget everything that happens at this point because I distinctly remember actively like following Naruto anime to anime week by week at this section. I can't remember why. It might have been because football season started. I just remember like as soon as tuning like Gaara goes crazy, I kind of just
the way it goes in my mind is Sasuke is fighting Gaara. Next thing I know, Naruto is headbutting Gaara and he's inside a raccoon. Next thing I know, Naruto and Sasuke are clashing beams at the God Valley.
Yeah, that's how I remember it too.
Somewhere in there,
Tsunade comes out.
Tsunade is there, a Rasengan's learned, and Kiba does a really giant like spinny move.
Mm-hmm. There's one more thing I want to talk about.
Shit, Choji, but whatever. That's
yeah. One of the things I want to talk about is Gaara, and that they do a really good job of manga as well of making Gaara this fucking monster, and it's awesome. Like I really like how Gaara, like he's in this background this whole time, and he slowly becomes more and more into the front of like the arc as it becomes apparent. Like, oh, we have to eventually fight this guy, and you see like this guy is crazy. He can kill anybody super easily and does it for fun.
His introduction of like him killing that like
sound ninja
or whatever with the umbrellas, that's rad.
Yeah, he's just like and he just crushes them, and the guys are just like, here's the scroll, we're done, and they leave. It's so cool. And there's also the Hinata versus Neji fight, which was great. I love that fight.
I don't remember how it goes.
Basically, like Hinata, like it's kind of the same thing where like Hinata's tried her hardest and she knows she's weak and she knows she's all these things that Neji's saying, but she's not giving up. And she comes, I don't want to say close, but she does her goddamn
She
best.
gets some hits in.
Yeah, she does.
It's Uraraka versus Bakugo, you know?
Yeah.
It's just that.
And it's like she's just like I get that you're upset with me, but you have to understand that I've been through a lot too. And I just thought it was a great kind of like way of like showcasing who Neji was and Hinata and like showing like how Naruto has affected her and all that kind of stuff. I liked all the preliminary fights that were like actually showcased and weren't just like one-off kind of deals. Mm-hmm. Like they were great. I think.
Naruto is really strong there at the start. We should talk about Green Naruto sometime, though.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah,
We
because
should talk about it.
a lot what you said has reminded me of how tight Green Naruto starts as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to seeing of like what happens next on this little Naruto escapade I get. And man, there are times where like the dub. Oh, there was okay. So it becomes very obvious there was a script writing like dynamic change between the preliminary section and the rest of the training exams. Like previously, like up until the end of preliminaries, it was very obvious that they were trying to keep this show very close to 4 kids friendly dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, we have like Jiraiya and Shikamaru just going like, "God damn, will you get off me, you pieces like not piece of shit, but like basically like doing these soft swears." And I'm just like, this is a weird, like not weird, but like it's kind of like jarring a little bit that suddenly we have these like curse words and like
It's like when Canadian cartoons realize that they can use crap and use throw up and like blur nudity, and then all shit went to hell.
Yeah.
At that point,
it was kind of weird because like I was just like I got to the Jiraiya arc and then Shikamaru just like says, will you just shut up, goddamn fool?" I was like, whoa.
I can't believe he says that.
So he says something like that. Like I was just taken aback that like these are children. But I'm enjoying Naruto. I will report back when I get through the Gar arc probably, and probably a little bit into the chasing after Tsunade arc. Tsunade. Yeah. Anyways, Naruto is okay.
Oh. Dreamin'.
Don't give it up, Bradley.
Hey,
Don't give it up, Bradley.
we've summoned the boy.
Yeah, I hope you guys have been singing the song every day.
It's right before you do your nightly prayer. Make sure to sing "Don't Dream It Up, Bradley."
Jesus Christ.
For those of you who were with us last time, which is hopefully all of you,
And more.
we ended our One Piece discussion last week on the second to last chapter of Volume 25, where we get the Blackbeard reveal. And by Blackbeard reveal, I mean we find out who Blackbeard is, which is just such a cool moment.
What chapter are we on? Probably. I'm sorry, I was looking at something else.
Yeah, so now we're going to be on chapter 235, the knock-up stream.
Yeah.
I think last week I had decided to split like right before this chapter because like we had just done like the 2 or 3 chapters of like international stuff, and then I saw this chapter is called the knock-up stream, and I'm like, okay, we're about to actually begin this arc, so I thought that would be a good cutting point.
And you were really close. You were like one chapter, like it does like pretty much.
Yeah.
Jaya ends on this chapter basically.
Also, we have a sort of new, but not really that new format this week. I think it's just a little bit more
Streamlined
because usually we kind of do a like a play-by-play
Chapter
of
by chapter.
Virtually like chapter by chapter, sometimes even page by page, which is fun because pretty much every page of One Piece is good. However, usually after like an hour and 15 minutes of that, I'm going to be feeling a little bit burnt out, and I don't know if the listeners are too. I think what we're going to do this week will let us kind of focus on the good parts a little bit more. And what I did is, as I went through this week, I would put sticky notes on pages that had something I particularly want to talk about. So for each chapter, we'll still kind of be like, oh, you know, this is what the chapter was about. But rather than talking about like literally every panel, each of us can just kind of bring up like moments in the chapter that we like.
One thing about this is as we're going page by page, we feel kind of forced to say stuff more often. With this, I think with Bradley just skipping to his sticky notes, it could shave off like 10 to 20 minutes and kind of get our timing perfect, at least.
Yeah, I think this is going to be better in just about every way.
Kind of what we did with Worm, where we're trying to hit all the good points and not over fatigue.
because like when we did that format for Worm, like we cut down the talks by like at
Half.
least 30 minutes, and I think they're more enjoyable to do and listen to now.
Worm talks are
I think
dope
we're
now.
I think we're kind of doing the same for One Piece. So this week we're starting with chapter 235, the knock-up stream. And in chapter 235, it is basically Luffy coming back from having done the just punchiest of punches on Bellamy. He rendezvous with the crew, and in this chapter, they are making their way to the knock-up stream. Some moments I noticed in this chapter that I kind of wanted to bring special attention to. Where's my first sticky note? There we go. So on one of the pages where they are actually sailing into the knock-up stream, and of course they're being chased by Blackbeard's crew because he saw Luffy's bounty, and he's chasing Luffy, which, first of all, I wanted to talk about that. This is a town where there are multiple people with like 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollar bounties. And Blackbeard was just kind of chilling in this town. But he actually really chases after Luffy, which is how we know that like $100 million is nothing to sneeze at. Like, that is not typical.
Dollars.
Yeah, that is big dollars.
And as we know from the world government part, Lafitte, the top hat man, he was saying you're gonna know about Blackbeard soon.
Oh yeah.
And this is how Blackbeard's trying to make a name for himself, and 100 million berry is a perfect way to do that.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, he captured the 100 million berry pirate who shut down one of the 7 warlords of the sea. He's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So on one of these pages where they're both being chased by Blackbeard, they're kind of sailing into the knock-up stream, and I kind of wish that every page had page numbers so I know what page I'm talking about, but Nico Robin is... But there's a brief moment where Robin turns around to Nami and she says, "Navigator, what about the log pose?" And I think this was like a very purposeful choice on Oda's part, where she calls Nami Navigator rather than Nami. And obviously it's not because she doesn't know Nami's name. They know each other and they've interacted fairly frequently. But I think this just kind of reinforces that Robin is still very new to the crew. She probably hasn't been in the crew more than a week at this point. And in tense situations like this, she probably more immediately recognizes people as their roles rather than their names.
I've read that. I've always seen this a different way. She was in an organization of secret code names for a long time, and I've always thought that this was her still easing in to the idea of calling people by their names.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that interpretation too.
Bradley, this is my Robin degeneracy coming out.
Oh boy!
Oh, God.
Keep that in mind. Yeah, keep that in mind until the end of the next saga.
Yeah.
So just keep this. Just know whenever she says someone's name versus when they call them their role.
But yeah, I'm really glad you caught that, Bradley. That's really cool.
Yeah. I really like that because
not very, but it's I think important to her character.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, so that way I can like keep searching for that.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about it before. I know in Alabasta, there were some moments where I was talking about where Oda has like very purposeful word choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like this was one of those moments, so I wanted to highlight it. And then I turned the page, and we get this like 2-page spread of the whirlpool that leads down to the knock-up stream, and at the bottom, we see each of the Straw Hats reacting to their imminent demise, and I like. It's not really that there's any like hidden meanings or analysis here. I just really love this because each of their reactions are so them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Luffy's so excited, and like Zoro's just like, "Oh God, well here we go."
Cool-headed.
Like, just freaking out. And like even for Nami, like she's also freaking out, but it's her words. She's like, no one said anything about this because she likes having a plan.
Yeah.
She likes to know what's going to happen. So each of the reactions are just Oda just knows his characters, is what I'm trying to say.
I wanna. That's just something to keep in mind, and something that's we might not bring mention to it every time it happens. But this first half of Skypiea is chocked full of moments of like 5 or 6 or 7 of the Straw Hats all having a reaction on the same page, or like small conversations. This arc is really good at like showing you their character in different situations, because they're about to run into a variety of very different situations that they're used to, and you get a lot of comedic or very telling moments of their personalities.
This arc is also kind of like the first arc in a while where the Straw Hats aren't necessarily like part of someone else's adventure. Where like all of the Alabasta saga really feels like the Straw Hats are part of Vivi's kind of quest to reclaim her kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Straw Hats doing Straw Hats.
Yeah, and
It's very-
we're really back to just like our boys doing their own thing. And like Wheeler said, like I don't know at what point during my reading this past week I had this thought, but I did kind of notice that thing you said where it seems like there's even more moments than usual where it's like just the Straw Hats interacting with each other.
Yeah.
So I guess the last like big sticky I put in for this volume was a few pages later, and I'm kind of having to remember why I put these stickies down as I go to the page.
You can do this, Bradley.
But basically, it's this page where I think it's like immediately before they get knocked up in the knock-up stream. This page has like a big smiling Luffy on half of it, and basically, there's a brief moment where Usopp is like, no, like when faced with death, he's like, oh my god, no, the Sky Island isn't real. Like this whole thing, there's no way. We have to turn around. And what he says to Luffy is, the Sky Island is a dream in a dream. He's like, it's not real, but we know what the idea of dreams is to Luffy. So when Luffy hears a dream in a dream, he's like, oh, well, now we gotta do it. he loves it. So
that Luffy. So this character is really showing you certain aspects of certain characters very prominently, on top of like all those smaller moments with them. The big one with this is Luffy and adventure. He mentions so many times how he wants to go adventure, how he doesn't care about the consequences. He just wants to have fun with it. He knows he can handle himself. And this is kind of the starting point of it. There's a ton of that.
So the rest of this chapter is basically them getting knocked up into the knock-up stream, and that was my last sticky for this volume. Unless you guys had anything else in this chapter.
I have two things. I want to talk about Blackbeard's ship real quick. It's
kind of that like log raft.
Like, yeah, let's not mince words. He's sailing on a raft.
He's got to make a name for himself.
You're really getting this rags to riches vibes from him, where he's out here busting his ass, sailing on rafts, trying to get a motley crew together, trying to make a big name for himself. Just something to note. Like I've always really loved that aspect of him starting off on a raft.
I didn't even consider that.
In fact, the knock-up stream destroys his raft, so it's like he just picks himself back up, and like they're floating on a single log by the end of it. Lastly, is how much this arc has Nami focus, and how important she is to the crew. Her sailing up the knock-up stream and getting the crew together in order to succeed that impossible task. I think that's a really good moment to just make us remember why Nami is so incredible outside of her combat.
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing that too, because for a lot of the last like saga of One Piece, like the majority of the Alabasta arc, they usually know where they're going and how to get there. So the role of navigator kind of got put into the background.
Yeah.
But now they're back into the unknown. So they're going to be relying on Nami very heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think we might be shutting the cover on volume 25 here.
We are indeed. We're 12 minutes into the first 2 chapters. We killing it, boys.
Oh yeah. And then we open up volume 26, which one thing I commented to Willer about is Oda's now drawing Luffy with substantially more abdominal muscles now. And I think he said like this is him maybe kind of like finalizing his design. I know he does draw a lot of the characters very differently than he did like 20 volumes ago.
Definitely, yeah.
Yes.
I feel like this is the Luffy design we will see for a while.
Yeah. So we open this volume up, and the first chapter of this volume is still them up in the knock-up stream. And they eventually finally land in the clouds where they're promptly assaulted. And my first sticky, let's see what I put this on top of. It's like opening presents.
Ooh.
So, oh man, so this is great. It's Blackbeard's crew kind of commenting on the fact that the Straw Hats got away. And we got to talk a lot about how both similar and different Luffy and Blackbeard are last week, and how while they differ in pretty much all of their tastes, one kind of uniting factor is kind of how driven they are towards their goals and how much stock they put in ambition or dreams. And I think another really interesting thing here is when they're talking about how the Straw Hats got away, and it kind of zooms out on the sea, and I believe it's Blackbeard who says, if our will is strong, we'll meet them again.
Yes.
Which is something Luffy would say, because even if he doesn't have a practical reason to believe that, it's good enough for Luffy. Like, it reminds me of when Ace gave Luffy the paper, and he's like, if you just hold on to this paper, we'll meet again. And Luffy's like, well, it works for me. So it's kind of like Blackbeard. That's just another quality he has in common with our main character. He's like, well, if we just really, really want to meet them again one day, we will. And that's all he needs.
I'll take a moment to also point out that this exact same panel has the crew bantering in their different personalities with Blackbeard's line here. Much like when Luffy says something dumb about dreams, each Straw Hat will have their own take on it. So that's pretty neat.
Man, I like going forward, I really want to see more Blackbeard, because I think he's just like a really... I think one of you guys last week said like Blackbeard's introduction is one of the most like obvious ways to set up a foil to a character.
It's both a genius and in your face way to set up.
Oda doesn't want any kind of like
ambiguity.
Yes, he's like, this person is Luffy, but not.
Yeah. So I'm just like really excited to see what more they have in common, and
it's a
also
bummer
what
that
they
he
have not in common in the future.
It's a bummer that he dies off screen right there, like a Sea King eats them.
Oh yeah, you know, he had a good run.
Yeah.
And then a few pages later, Usopp tries to swim in the clouds, right? And Luffy throws his fist into the clouds after him, and Robin uses her fruit to put eyes all over Luffy's arm, which, one thing that is even so much more cool to me than a cool ability is cool synergies between abilities.
Ooh, that's one of the best things. There's a lot of cool synergies in One Piece.
Yeah, like this is just the coolest. She's like, oh, well, if you just throw your arm, then I can see over there. And then it's like, oh, well, I can't make my arms go over there, but if you throw your arm out, then I can just make a bunch of arms and we can just grab Usopp. And like, it's really cool. I really love synergies like this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just thought everyone had to know about that. And then they're soon after attacked by this, like, I was about to say sea monster, which I guess you would call it a sea monster, but it's like a sky sea monster because they're in the They're in the White Sea. There's the White Sea and the White Sea, right?
Yes.
Okay, they're in the White Sea right now.
Sky sea monster is exactly what they would call it, because I was noticing it's just like, oh, it's a sky shark and a sky fox and a sky blank.
Yeah, and like it's really cool because this is like a tremendous monster, and Zoro's like, oh well, fuck it, we gotta go fight it, and he cuts it, and its tentacle like explodes, and my first thought was, holy shit, when did he get this strong? But then we find out that the monster was actually kind of hollow like a balloon, and they talk about how like a normal fish isn't going to be able to swim in these clouds. Like all the creatures up here, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them are like balloony kind of, so that they can float up here, and I just thought it was really cool.
Oda will go every step to make his world fun and as believable as he can.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the balloon fish things. And then they get attacked by a Majora's Mask boss, or whatever you would call this guy. He's wearing like a tribal mask, and he's really cool. And then he gets destroyed by the Sky Knight, who I think looks awesome.
Gone 4.
And then we move on to chapter 238, Heaven's Gate, but I should also comment on the fact that we have a new between chapter story going on.
I was wondering when you were going to mention this.
Yeah, with Wapple, and most of the first instances of it is just him eating things, and
it's just kind of funny. Like each little chapter is called "I eat blank."
Yeah, I eat lamps, which I don't know, sounds like a TLC show or something. But we move on to the next chapter, and we get to, okay, I had a sticky on this page. I was trying to find out why I put it here. I think it's really cool that, you know, we kind of have to find a way to challenge our characters, because when we show how strong they are, if we're gonna have people who can beat them in fights, we need at least some reason to believe that person could beat our character in a fight. And we saw Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji. I was about to say Usopp. I don't know. We saw like our three kind of heavy hitters just get thrashed, and they're like, man, like we just were not at the top of our game there. What's going on? And the Sky Knight kind of explains that Blue Sea people, that tends to happen to them because you're really high up. There's not going to be a lot of oxygen, and you're just probably going to get exhausted really easily, I think is kind of what they're saying.
Mm-hmm. Of course, it won't take long for these three to adapt. I'm interested to see if they square off with Majora's Mask again.
Yeah, they get acclimated pretty quickly in this arc. I just think initially it was a good way to have them like believably get thrashed by their first opponent. But I think in a few chapters they've kind of adjusted a little bit better. So this chapter is kind of a small amount of an info dump by the Sky Knight, because obviously our people don't know anything about Skypiea. Like they weren't even 100% sure it existed until recently. And so we skip forward a few pages, and we see that the Sky Knight, his bird is a devil fruit user. And I just really liked this small little panel where Chopper realizes the bird is a devil fruit user. And I think it's interesting that Oda zoomed in on Chopper specifically and his look of surprise, just because I think it's funny that this bird and Chopper are both animals and they both have the same type of fruit. So I think it makes sense that he would be like, oh, whoa, whoa.
A monster like me.
Yeah, and there's not really anything deeper to this. It's just
neat.
Yeah, like when it's just another thing where it's like everything Oda does was a deliberate choice on his part. So considering how many members of the Straw Hats there are, it's very purposeful that he chose Chopper to be the one like, ooh.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a polka dotted Pegasus, and
Something seems off.
it looks badass is the word that I'm sure everyone would use to describe it.
Definitely.
And then we get to shortly after this, they get to Heaven's Gate, which I was talking to Willer about this. How I think it's really cool that there's a toll for Heaven's Gate, and they're like, "Oh, well, we don't have money. I guess we can't go through." And she's like, "Oh, no, you can go through." Like, you can totally go through Heaven's Gate. Like, you don't have to pay to get through. They're just gonna try and arrest you when you go inside. Like, no, you can come in.
I'm an old lady. I'm not gonna enforce this, but you go in and you're a criminal, so just have
Yeah,
fun.
she's like, I mean, she's like, you can go ahead. It's not my job to stop you, but people are gonna stop you.
I love Luffy's elation that he's going to heaven. He's just having such a fun time in Skypiea.
Oh, dude, he loves it. Which I probably would too, especially considering like the scene that they're about to see. I'm just like, oh my gosh, that would probably be the coolest looking place in the world.
It's definitely worth checking out that chapter in the colored manga version, because like the colors in Skypiea are really pretty.
Yeah, I remember you saying like
Yeah.
that's something that definitely has to be checked out. And then King Wapple eats a bench. Oh god. Imagine sitting on that.
He's ruined the state.
And then
Yeah.
whew, god. And then we move on to chapter 239, which they kind of traverse the what is it? I think they don't name it right now, but this is the Milky Road, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they see and I think this is where they get their confirmation that they actually are in Skypiea.
Yeah.
Because there's like a sign up next to the hole that's like, hey, you're in Skypiea. And then they see Skypiea, and it is the coolest thing ever. So they're kind of floating on the ocean, deciding like, okay, do we get off the boat? What do we do here? Do we go run down onto the beach? And Nami takes off her shirt, and I'm mostly commenting on this. Well, there's two reasons I'm commenting on it. One is because you know exactly why they put this on the volume cover. And number two, it sets up for a really funny joke with Sanji later.
Yeah, good setup. This whole
and
beach
then-
scene is just delightful.
Yeah. As everyone's kind of running out onto the beach to enjoy it, I think like the last two to get off the boat are Robin and Zoro. And there's been a lot of moments in the past like 2 volumes where it'll be these two alone, whether they get separated up into the group or they just kind of lag behind. Because at this point, every time that Zoro's kind of commented on Robin, to some degree, it's been about how he can't 100% trust her yet. And you can even kind of see this in his expressions towards her. I think she's kind of indifferent to how he feels about her, but he definitely still feels on edge to me, and I don't know what you guys think about that.
Definitely, and but also like you can see a little bit of bonding here, or just she's expressing something that he finds curious, which is just she's never really had an idea of adventure like exploring new lands. It just makes you think like, what kind of life have you gone through? Like I want to learn more about Robin's mindset when I hear her say stuff like this.
She has been someone who for I don't know how many years, if she's going somewhere, it's because she has a mission.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the Straw Hats adventuring, like borderline aimless. They go where they are interested in going.
That's a really good way to put it. Being aimless is foreign to her, and she seems to be enjoying the concept.
Yeah. It's really cool. And this is also, even though this is like extremely short, like less than a page, it's still probably more like banter or just talking than they've had before, these two.
Mm-hmm.
So I really do think that Zoro is opening up to her. And I don't know what it is about these two characters as a combo that jumps out to me so much, but I don't know. I really like it.
Definitely feels like Oda setting something up.
Yeah. So we jump to everyone kind of having fun on the beach, and we meet
Kaido. Conus.
Conus or Conus?
I think it's Conus.
Conus. And she, like, these people are like actually angels, right? These wings aren't just their clothes, right?
Yeah, they are a race of human-like people with wings.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And she and her dad are just like the nicest people.
They're so nice, man. She immediately befriends them. She's probably used to having a couple of like blue seers over here, and she's probably like guiding them around and stuff like that.
Yeah, because like I imagine people like if Heaven's Gate always pops you out here, she probably gets to meet blue sea people whenever they come that way. So she's like, "Oh, yay." She probably has in mind that she's going to be meeting people like this sometimes. So I don't know. It's just a lot of fun.
And to note that it doesn't seem that rare for blue sea people to show up, because they also mention there's an alternate route that you can get in. I don't think they explain it, but clearly there's a way for blue sea people to get here.
Yeah, it's not like a once every 100 years deal. Like clearly people get up here.
Yeah.
And then King Wapple eats a town. That's I don't know, man. I'm really interested to see where this like side story is going.
This side story has a mystery panel that stumped me and Joe for ages.
Oh man,
it's a good time. I'm sure we'll get to it soon.
So then we go to this next chapter is just kind of the crew meeting the family and learning a little bit more about Skypiea, and it's really funny. Luffy gets on the waiver and he starts writing it, and I like this moment because I'm sure like a few chapters before this I commented to Willer like, I wonder if Devil Fruit users sink here like they do in the normal sea, and sure enough they do. Indeed. And I was like, oh man, whenever I ask that, Willer's probably like, oh, just you wait.
It's also really cool, jumping a little bit ahead, we get the explanation for how these clouds are formed, right? And
yeah, he talks about how, you know, like minerals kind of get blown up into the air by like, I think like volcanic vents and maybe even just evaporation, but like these minerals, they're going to include fragments of sea prism stone.
Specifically, yeah, it's sea prism stone gets under a volcano and releases like they make up like some sort of material that it sends up, and that's what forms the two cloud structures that make up Skypiea.
Yeah, so since the White Sea is made up of like this type of cloud that contains sea prism stones, it's gonna functionally be the same as falling in the ocean, which is God, like Oda, holy shit.
That whole sea prism thing is such a brilliant little moment of like, how the fuck do these clouds even work? And then he explains it, and he's explaining it with completely made up concepts, but it feels so grounded and so thought out.
Yeah, Oda knows what the fuck he's doing.
A little bit.
And then the rest of this chapter is just kind of everyone having fun, getting to know each other. Sanji cooks some sky food, and then the chapter ends with Nami happens upon the island that you are absolutely never ever supposed to go to, the domain of the Kami.
One thing I want to bring up real quick. Yeah. On this track of showing how cool Nami is outside of combat, she immediately picks up the waiver. I thought that was a really cool way, and it feels really right with her personality. And we won't dwell too much on the dials for time, but I think the dials are a really cool technology.
Yeah, like I feel like virtually everything in Skypiea works through these dials, and it's really cool that there's like different kinds, like ones that capture light and heat and stuff like that.
It automatically answers the question. It's like, well, how do they sleep and cook and shit? You can just fill in the blank. They use dial technology. It's perfect.
Yeah. The next chapter opens up with Luffy being very excited because everything that these angels tell Luffy to scare him from going there just makes him more excited to go there. Like, what? There's a Kami there. Oh, you're never ever supposed to go there. oh, it's dangerous.
I like how Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji are like, he's going to go there. Like,
yeah, like
he's not gonna try.
They just know him. Like there's 0% chance he's not gonna go there. And we get a very we get kind of an extended sequence of these characters that I now know to be the Kami's vassals, attacking someone who I assume there's someone else kind of like Nami who ventured onto the island. And you know, they're strong, they're cool, nothing too impressive until freaking beam from the sky just annihilates this man.
We're gonna talk more about these beams, I'm sure, but just this idea of a god smiting you wherever you are is such a cool backdrop for the tyranny that's going on in Skypiea.
Yeah, it's interesting because like from the moment the word Kami was dropped, I was like, okay, well,
how godlike can he really be?
Yeah, I'm like, depending on the story you're reading, God can mean a lot of different things. But yeah, beam from the sky smiting someone. I was like, oh, this is really a Kami right here.
This is that Old Testament shit right here. I like it.
Yeah, and pretty much as soon as she sees that, Nami GTFOs, and when we come back to the Straw Hats, they are confronted with the White Beret military force, which they look cool, and I feel like I just should also comment on the Skypiea greeting, which I guess is Hesso. I like it. It's fun.
Yeah.
And he also does a gesture where he makes like bunny ears behind his head, where you just assume that's like some kind of customary or like formal greeting up here. I don't know. It's just flavor.
Wapple's face when he's getting arrested is worth noting because he's like,
yeah, he is. That's a record scratch moment right there. And so the White Berets approach the Straw Hats by army crawling on the ground, and then they just stand right back up, which is fun. And then we kind of have this fun escalation where they're like, oh, you guys are trespassing in Skypiea, that costs this much money. And they're like, oh, well, we can't pay that money. It's like, oh, well, if you can't pay the money, that's a this level crime. You're coming with us. And they're like, no, we're not. And it's like, well, if you don't come with us, that's going to be this level crime. And then they like start getting physical. It's like, oh, you've done it now. Now you're at this level crime.
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious.
It's also just a quick way to see like the law system or the crime and punishment system here. You don't like really need to get the whole explanation, but just seeing these like 4 levels of crime, you can extrapolate how their day-to-day crime system goes.
Yeah. And it's also worth noting that like the reason that these crimes exists are apparently because they're like offenses against the Kami. So it just kind of shows that like the Kami really has this place by the balls.
You have to imagine once you get to a low enough level, you're gonna get smited.
Oh yeah. Like I think they got to class 2 eventually, and I imagine class 1 is just like you're gone. Nami gets back, and the Straw Hats are able to fight off the White Berets for now. With Luffy does gum fireworks,
which is rad.
Yeah, he always pulls out these new attacks, and they're always different, and they're always fun. So the White Berets are like, oh, well, we don't even need to deal with you because the Kami's vassals are going to deal with you. And that's pretty much that for that chapter. It's a lot more... there's a little bit more action there. So there wasn't a whole lot to say there. But, dude, the drawing for chapter 243... we get to see King Dalton of the Cherry Blossom Kingdom, which it's just so nice to see our boy doing well.
He's the king now, and the kingdom has like proper name, and it feels nice and warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, it's just a really fun. Like I don't know if you call one drawing an epilogue, but that's what it feels like.
It's part of it. I mean, it's not even an epilogue, you know, like One Piece is just a moving world, so this is just where they're at now. It's cool.
So I really like the start of this next chapter where like they kind of tell Nami that Luffy's planning on going to this island she just came from, and Nami does everything she can to warn him not to go. And the reason this is interesting is because Nami is someone who is like consistently very confident in Luffy's abilities. Like whenever they were at Mocktown, even though you'll have people with like, ooh, 50 million berry bounty, she's just like, Luffy, what are you doing? Like, beat him up. She's like,
Yeah.
obviously you can beat him up. But when she returns from this island, she's like, no, Luffy, you will not win. You will lose if you go there and fight those people. Like they are just too dangerous. And so like the fact that it's coming from Nami, it's like, holy shit.
Deliberate, like you said. I just want to point out in a moment of great paneling, Nami she's saying, "You're a genius, Luffy." She puts out her hand. You're like, "What's this about?" Like it's there building anticipation, and then you get this panel of her like continuously smacking him in the forehead as she like keeps lecturing him bubble by bubble. I just love when Oda does stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just like it feels really animated. Like you can almost hear this panel, and I don't know, it's just good. Oda's good at what he does. So I think they decide they're gonna set sail, and I think Luffy decides he's gonna set sail for the island anyway, and they know they can't really stop him. So everyone starts heading back to the boat, and I don't know. There's just I like you said, I think we're just getting interactions between every single character this arc, because like there's Chopper trying his hardest to climb up into the boat, and Robin's like, "Oh, I was gonna drop the ladder for you," and I don't know.
It's so simple and sweet, right?
Yeah, like I don't know if we've seen specifically those two even talk to each other yet, but this was just a fun little moment because like I don't know, she has like a genuinely helpful look on her face.
There's one I really want to bring up here. It's the page right after. It's Usopp talking about how he takes care of the Mary.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say? I'll let you go first if you got like a thing for that.
I didn't have anything in particular to say, but I think it is clear here that like Usopp has kind of been their woodworker, even though he explicitly says that he's not. And it kind of shows that like he kind of does this because someone has to do it, not necessarily because that's his calling in life.
There's a couple of layers to it, right?
Yeah.
So you got to remember who gave him the Mary. It was Kaya.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that.
So that ship is like really important to Usopp. Another level is that like Usopp's role in the crew is not always like the most important, so he helps out where he can and he takes ownership over it.
And his role is a lot more, I guess, nebulous compared to like Nami or Chopper or.
And he doesn't have the leadership of Zoro, you know, so it's like you
Yeah.
can't. And another thing,
Or like the battle prowess. He's very much like on the ship and he's doing what he can do.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I just really like it's a really simple moment to remind us of that and remind us of his tie with Kaya and the ship, right? And another thing is like when you look at it, look how cool like that they put the little wings on the Mary and she fucking flew up a geyser,
Oh yeah.
which I think is like it's badass that like this little ship from the East Blue is out here in the Sky Islands. It also crashed into like Laboon. So it's like Usopp, like someone's got to be taking care of the ship, and it's cool how Oda's addressing it here while tying it back to Kaya and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
I just man, I didn't even think about the tie-in to the fact that this boat came from Kaya, so he just wants to take really good care of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of going on while everyone's preparing to sail away. They want to like do some last minute repairs, get food. And they head outside and they see that the Marigo is being abducted, and Sanji is mortified. The other people are mortified that the boat is being taken, but Sanji is mortified that Nami put on a t-shirt at MI. And it's funny because no one really like Usopp's like, is that really what's important here? And then like I think a few pages later, Sanji's like,
Why'd
no
she
one
do
ever
it?
answered my question. Why'd she put a t-shirt back on?
Sanji is very Bradley here.
He's I don't know. I was right there with him. But, yeah, the merry-go gets taken to the sacrificial altar, and it's going to be up to Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp to rescue them. Which,
This is a fun trio, right? Like,
yeah, I was like, I don't know if we've gotten, I don't know when the last time this trio has gone on a mission together. So this will be fun.
This is an interesting group because you have two of the members of like the Monster Three, which is kind of like
the name for the three big fighters.
right, Sanji and Luffy, and then you have Usopp, who is not a navigator, not like not an archaeologist, so he can't figure out where he is. He is kind of just like a weirdo in the bunch. But
additionally,
yeah,
Sanji can be fickle and like selfish and just a horn dog, so he can be like mean to the others when it comes to that. So
Yeah.
it's a group ready for some fun.
Yeah, and like usually when Luffy makes up his mind to do something, he's gonna do it. And I think like the only two people who have ever been able to rein him in, even sometimes, are Nami and Zoro.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if Sanji or Usopp would be able to restrain Luffy from doing something.
They'll berate him, but that's about it.
So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this trio operates, and I really hope that Usopp like plays a pivotal role in defeating one of these vassals that I'm sure they're gonna have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
So we get a chapter where it's kind of this trio with Conus, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of walking through this Skypiea town, and at this point, everyone knows that they're trespassers in their land. And Conus is like very
Sketchy.
She's kind of very quiet and reserved in this chapter, and we find out why, I think, at the end of this chapter. But I remember thinking, like when this chapter started, I was like, man, like holy shit, like she's so nice, like because like even whenever she first met the crew, I was like, God, her and her dad are so welcoming. And that was fine because I'm like, some people in One Piece are just really, really nice people. But I was like, man, like, even after she finds out they're criminals and like her and her father's well-being on the line, like, why is she still being so nice? And then at the end of the chapter, we kind of see her break down that she summoned the Special Lobster Express, which I just realized saying that in a serious tone felt really silly.
Only in One Piece, man. But yeah, no, this is a serious deal.
Could that be our title?
Yeah.
As that was coming out of my mouth, I was like, I can't say this seriously and not sound like an idiot. But
No, but it is genuinely heartbreaking, right? You can see also the distress on her father's face. I think his name is Pug or Pepega,
something like that.
Something like that.
But yeah, she was forced to do this top 10 anime betrayal because if she didn't, you know, her father would probably also become targets to the kami and the vassals. So
this is really setting up that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
It's just really setting up that like Skypiea is a place where you don't get away with crimes.
Yeah, because this kami sees everything.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it's just insane. And then this next page after she tells them that, Luffy gets furious, and he is not someone who loses his cool easily. Like even if someone is fighting him, like even when he was getting the shit kicked out of him by Bellamy in the bar and he promised he wasn't going to fight, we didn't see him get this angry or upset. But like Sanji, Usopp, and Luffy get furious that, you know, she told them that because now she's going to be in trouble. And that's what makes Luffy mad. It's not him being in danger, it's his friends being in danger. So she endangered herself, and he's just like, why would you do that?
I like how you can also extrapolate that each one of them has like a slightly different reason for being mad at her.
Yeah.
Like you can picture Usopp's as more self-preservationist, and Sanji's is like caring for a woman, but they're all also just being chivalrous at the same time. It's really cool.
And man, like they're right to be worried for her because almost immediately the Kami tries to smite her.
Yeah, and
Just
Luffy.
that, like for like nothing. And this panel where Luffy is pulling her out of harm's way is one of my favorite panels in One Piece right now,
Ooh.
because even in some of Luffy's most intense moments where like he's doing like the finishing move on someone who's hurt his friends, like anytime he's fighting or doing like stuff that could endanger his own life, a lot of times he looks like he's having fun with it. He gets upset sometimes, but I don't know, usually he seems a lot more chipper. But
Like, let's think of what comes to mind immediately is when he finishes off Wapple. He's like having a good time with it.
but like this panel, it's like primal and like a desperate maneuver. Like he's not these are not careful movements. These are get us out of the way as fast as I humanly can. Like
Yeah.
it is, I just love it.
So I would say, like, just like going off what you said, like the Skypiea arc to me, and you might realize this as we go on, but like it feels like the first kind of like slight ramp up of like intensity in One Piece, compared to like Alabasta and everything. This feels like we're gonna raise the stakes just a little bit higher than an accelerated rate compared to last time.
Yeah, like as soon as we got to Mocktown and we saw a guy like get set on fire and thrown out of a window for virtually nothing, I was like, okay, there's like a little bit of a more intense tone to this arc, and then now we have like even more intense power levels in this arc.
I think you guys might be sleeping a little bit on the destabilization of a country and the sandstorms and a nuke that's gonna blow up almost everyone in the country. But you know, good point.
Oh, no.
And
No one was in danger there.
omnipotent, omnipotent
I mean-
Kami is scarier. I will agree.
I mean this in like our main. This is like one of the first times in a while where our main character looks genuinely distressed about what's happening.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Even in Alabasta, Water Luffy's just yucking it up.
Yeah, you know, he's fighting a warlord of the sea, and he's like, I'm Water Luffy now. But I don't know, man. Just right now, that's like top 5 panels for me.
That's really cool that you would single that panel out. I like that.
Just him desperately getting her out of the way. I love it. And I think this is the moment where, like, they kind of now realize what they're dealing with, because Nami tried to warn them, but this is the first time they saw the Kami's power for themselves, and they're like, "Oh shit." She wasn't kidding. Sorry, I'm coughing. I'm eating pizza while I'm doing this, actually.
You're doing really good, actually, if you're eating pizza. What the fuck? How are you not chewing? Anyways, I do want to bring up the end of this chapter where Konus is like, everybody knows who you are. Please come back to us, Kami. Just very interesting, very mysterious.
Yeah, like, I was like, oh man, like, there's even more depth to this than I thought, which of course there is, because this is One Piece.
Yeah.
So,
I want to.
yeah, I'm really interested to find out what that's all about.
When you substitute the word Kami, like the line "Please come back to us, God" is really deep and heavy.
Yeah, holy shit.
But also like, okay, yeah, we'll move on. No need for speculations yet.
So I want to go back one page, and there's this
Yeah.
one page in the top right corner where Luffy's just like, I could care less about this country. I just care about my friends.
Yeah, that's Luffy, all right.
Yeah. I just think it's kind of interesting in contrast to like what they did on Alabasta and how all they changed about that. Like it still hasn't like given Luffy a higher sense of purpose. You know what I'm saying?
And
Like
and he's kind of a hypocrite because he's such a nice boy. He's gonna help the country out because there's good people in the country. But like in his mind, he doesn't see it that way. He doesn't see himself as the savior that he actually is.
he doesn't. This will come into play much later. I think it's a deeper theme of One
Just
Piece
Luffy, yeah.
and allegiances to a group and allegiances to people. But that's something that we'll discuss probably way down the lineup. Becomes more apparent.
Like, Luffy can say whatever he wants, but like you said, like, we know he would help these people.
Yeah.
And like, on the subject of Alabasta, like, you could you could probably say like Luffy probably viewed Alabasta as an extension of Vivi.
Yeah.
Like if he's gonna,
Toto.
yeah, like helping his friend involves helping this country, and I imagine that would probably also extend to his new friends that he met in Skypiea. Like, I don't know, he wants the place they live to be a good place, I'm sure.
Not to mention adventure.
Oh yeah, you gotta have the adventure. King Wapple, not looking so good right now, man. He is not looking so good.
This is going places. Yeah, he is.
Cover story is great.
Oh, poor guy. He has the funniest faces.
I like how he's still in his winter wear with that fucking hippopotamus skin or whatever. Like that's gotta be warm.
Oh, you hate to see it, but
shit happens, bitch.
Yeah, he's kind of a bitch.
Yeah,
but you know, I'm sure that he will grow to be a very lovable man.
Bradley, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You're faced with 4 doors called the challenge of swamp, iron, string, and ball. Which one do you choose?
That's our hypothetical for this week. I thought this was really cool. It just because I'm me, it reminded me of Bowser's Castle in Super Mario RPG. And I would just like argue with myself over which door to go into because I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can beat that challenge. So I sat here and obviously I can't know what's behind any of these doors. I just thought Challenge of the Iron sounded cool, so I was like, you know what, fuck it.
That's the last one I'd go into. Just on like, a name, I feel like
oh, Challenge of the Iron. I'm probably
Ball would be the one I would pick. Like string to me, like Ball is of the one that's like the least threatening.
Yeah, you gotta go with Ball, which they do. So
they totally go with Ball. And then shortly after they are confronted with these doors, we cut back to the crew. Like the others who are at the sacrificial altar now. And I put a sticky note on this page. I'm trying to figure out why.
Is it Robin and Zoro leaving together? She's like, hey, can I come with you? And he's like, yeah, if you don't get in my way. I believe it's this page. Actually,
I thought maybe I thought we were on the panels beforehand, and there's the 3 of them lined up next to each other, reacting to what's happening to Zoro. And
I love that. I love how Robin says, if you'd been eaten, the clouds could have turned into red. This is the second time now where she has like a very dry, morbid reply that freaks everyone out. The first time was like, oh, what if Usopp just falls through the sea?
Yeah, that's the panel that I had put the sticky note on. And I mean, it's good. So I guess that's why I put my sticky note on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they kind of take a moment to get their bearings and figure out where they're gonna go. And yeah, Zoro and Robin gonna head out. And Zoro, of course, has to do the cool guy. Sorry, I don't pray to the kami.
Zoro's a Redditor.
Yeah, so I was like, I guess it is a Zoro thing to say.
Yeah,
so.
No. He makes it work.
Yeah, and of course, I was happy that Robin went with him. I hope they I don't know. I don't know. I just really hope they get more moments.
This is another fun trio that we're getting here.
Yeah, and then
I think my favorite part though is Chopper realizing that he's in the most danger of them all.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, they have to go out there and fight the dangerous stuff. I'll stay here and protect the boat all by myself. Wait a minute. Oh, it's so good.
I like how the chapter ends on that too.
Oh yeah, it's so good. And then we go to chapter 246, which immediately opens up with the 4 vassals. And I'm like, holy shit. But yeah, the people, our boys have to decide which door they're gonna go through. And oh yeah, I think they had the same reasoning you guys did, where Ball's the most harmless sounding, so we'll go in there. And I don't know, it's just really fun because they're like, oh man, wouldn't it suck if we fell down to the sea? And then you turn the page, to master of the page flip, and then it's like they're like, holy shit, We're actually falling.
Usopp's teeth.
Dude, yeah, I giggled at that panel so hard.
Also, like, they're not just falling off. They're like several dozens of meters off the waterfall when you turn the page.
Yeah, this isn't Schlitterbahn right here. This is
I like
this
how
is a plummet.
he loses his pupils.
But yeah, now they're in this really cool place with these balls floating everywhere. I wonder why they call it the
Trial of Balls.
Trial of the Balls. And we find out that each one of these has like a different surprise in it. All right, I don't know if you'd say surprise or trap. They're traps.
Mm-hmm.
Like snake nests and explosions and the Kami's one of the Kami's vassals, Satori,
Yes,
who is a ball himself, absolute ball of a man.
Yep.
And he kind of outlines the trial to them. He kind of kicks their ass and takes their boat, and he's like, the boat's gonna keep going. It's gonna keep floating down this river, and it'll eventually, I think he said, like, fall off Skypiea.
Jesus.
So he's like, you guys are gonna have to, like, either defeat me, or I think it's like defeat me and traverse this landscape and get your boat back before it's gone forever.
So I like that, putting a little time limit on it. I want to bring up the 2 impact dials. First of all,
Yeah.
impact dial is one of the coolest attacks. But, like, just look at how Oda's drawing these, man. This looks great.
Yeah, like, these impacts that he does are insane. And, like, we know that blunt force is probably, like, the least effective type of move to use against Luffy. So the fact that it hurts him as much as it does is, like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really... I think that's about where this volume leaves off, is him kicking their ass and explaining the trial to them.
Is that where you left off?
Yeah, I left off at the end of this volume.
Good
Everyone
deal.
buy Yu Yu Hakusho. It's
I don't
good.
know.
I guess.
It catches me off guard every time when you do this, but I like it every time.
Yeah, I always like seeing the manga it tells you to buy at the end of the volume.
So
But, yeah,
that was a really good talk. I like how we, like, even without summarizing, that was like, we just hit an hour right now. But, like, imagine if we didn't do that, we would have been like 120 and we would have all been tired. So I thought that was a much better way to do it.
yeah, I think we did it faster, and I had a lot more fun doing it because we got to, like, really focus on, like, the good stuff.
I think also coming up, it's gonna be just, it's a lot of battling. We've kind of exited out of that but we've exited out of the more, like, everyone's talking and explaining things and motivational stuff. We're in the heat of battle now.
Mm-hmm.
So no one really wants to hear well, this guy punches this guy, and then this guy punches this guy. It's like, we can just focus on the juicy bits.
But also, like, the sticky notes are really good because, like, we did almost none of, like, and then this happened and then this happened. We were just like moving on to the next sticky note. So I like this.
I didn't realize what a fat stack of sticky notes I had until now, because now they're all pulled out of the volume, and I'm like, holy shit.
There was generally, like, way more stuff to talk about than I thought, but, like, there's a lot of good stuff in this beginning.
Oh man, I remember mentioning this to Willer as I started doing the sticky notes. It's interesting because this, like, let me notice a trend where the vast majority of my sticky notes ended up, like, sticking out of the bottom of the volume. Like, most of the stuff that I found notable ended up being at the bottom of pages, and I think on those pages, it's kind of like Oda treats pages like a micro chapter, where the top of the page can be like an introduction, and there's build up, and then characters usually have a really cool line or really cool, like, action or something at the bottom of the page. And I think that's why most of my sticky notes ended up being there. And obviously all pages are formatted differently, and that's not going to be true for all pages.
But there's definitely a trend.
Yeah.
That's a good analysis right there. I'll keep my eye out for that as well. That's One Piece, guys.
Set sail.
Skypiea's pretty long, so I think this will at least be like a 3 or 4 talk kind of scenario.
Yeah, it's
But it gets pretty action heavy, so I think we'll be good either way.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
very action heavy. Some good breaks, some really good like
Yeah.
hunking points on things, but a lot of action in this arc.
All right. Let's Joe, give us a hypothetical before you leave.
All right. So you're walking through the woods,
Oh god.
and you come up to 4 trees, and these trees have different doors on them.
Okay.
One of the doors is a rabbit. The other door is a pumpkin. The other door is a Christmas tree. And the last door is a face of Donald Trump.
Okay. I was about to say I've seen these woods before. But...
I'll say as soon as you said the forest and the trees, I was like, is he gonna do Nightmare Before Christmas?
You did.
Anyways, you have to burn one of the trees.
Oh god.
Which one do you burn?
Joe, are you sure you want to
Don't do
record
this,
this right now?
I
Let's say
dye my
Donald
skin
Trump
green
and
and I
fireworks.
say, I hate Christmas, and I burn the Christmas tree.
There you go.
All right, Willard.
I gotta burn the presidential tree because I like the holidays more than I like any president, really. Like this isn't about a.
No,
it's not
Willard,
about.
FBI, they're coming for you, man.
It's not about a. Oh shit! Oh fuck! All right, so I managed to avoid the FBI just long enough to talk about Worm with Bradley.
That darn FBI.
I punched him in the nuts and I said, "Take that, you worm!"
Take that, you worm. And then they said, hey, that would be a really cool line if Worm was adapted to a TV show.
It should be the first line. So I'm almost done with arc 21, but I didn't finish it. So today we only have one arc, which is 20, which was a nice breath of fresh air as far as length.
I think we go from like some of the longest arcs in the story straight to 20, which is probably like the shortest one since the first 3 or 4 arcs.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a little bite,
which I appreciate. I do want to shout out a comment.
Hey,
was this first of all, Bradley? What did you do on our account earlier? Because I have my Reddit, both my personal and our Roundabout Reddit, linked to my phone, and I was just getting blown up messages about something you posted on the Worm.
I wonder what happened.
I'm very scared of looking at anything going on there. I want to shout out our boys Megafire7 and Bam3221 or 3211. Bam saying that he really likes the 18 and 19 on rereads. Hey. And Megafire saying that his favorite moment is Taylor and Clockblocker cutting a kid in half, and I would agree with you, sir. That moment is probably my favorite moment that Taylor has maybe ever done.
It's pretty freaking cool, and I 18 and 19 are definitely arcs that on a reread I'm like, oh man, I'm very excited to get there.
Second of all, I want to shout out the TNTM just for being great. Thanks for always watching and listening.
Yeah, he's a very active member of the Roundabout community, and we always love hearing from our boy.
Am I supposed to know what his little bunny avatar is, or is that something for later?
I'm not all the way caught up on Ward.
You think it's a Ward thing, maybe?
I believe it's a Ward character.
Okay. By the way, hot take. I think Ward is gonna take place in this portal that they created. Maybe, I don't know.
You heard it here first.
We'll see. But all right, let's get into arc 20. I don't have a lot to say about this arc. It was that's why I brought up the TNTM. This is like one of his favorite arcs. I wasn't that into it, but there were some good parts of it, and we're going to talk about both aspects of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because like we've had someone comment, and it might be him in particular, who I think when we did arc 17, they're like, oh, it's not in my top 3 arcs, but it's good. But they're like, oh, but I really like arc 20. That's like my favorite. And I'm like, if you swapped 17 and 20, that'd be it for me. I was like, arc 20 is not my favorite. but arc 17, ooh.
Man.
I do know a lot of people who I've heard of a lot of people who just love arc 20, and
I can
I
see
mean,
why. I can see
yeah,
the kind of fan that would like this arc because it's really closing a lot of plot threads that have been set up earlier in the story, particularly Emma and Danny. I feel like their storylines maybe not climax because I don't know what's in the future, but this is a initial climax maybe to some of those storylines. Maybe there will be a second arc to each one of these storylines, but um I I remember once upon a time saying, "Why is Wildbow still playing around with this Danny doesn't know about Taylor thing?" He held off on it, right? And I feel like I realize he does this about a lot of things, particularly like you think of Regent and Aisha, right? That is, they have a lot of shit that needs to be addressed, and it's stuff I really want to see be addressed. But Wild Bill always waits a long time to do it. Like in a little bit of a 21 thing, he starts addressing some of their issues and like some of their futures in that arc. 21 arcs in, right? Even though we've been with Alec for the entire series and Aisha for most of it. Um, but you can't really fault him for it too bad because once you finish the Dinah arc, what is Taylor going to do, right? What is going to be her motivation? Well, by prolonging that for what may have annoyed me in the past, you do get to slot in a new path for Taylor to take now that she's finished her first primary goal. Now you can do the Danny storyline where he finds out about her true identity and you force her character to go a different direction, which is just full out Queen Bee.
yeah, and I really enjoyed the kind of end of this arc where Danny finds this out about her, because you're right, like this arc gives us kind of a lot of payoffs that we might not have even known were coming, but we needed.
It's
Um,
the kind of payoffs where it's like I don't even know if I'll ever get this because it feels like you Wild Bow waited so long, but also like this was a cool time to do it.
yeah, I think we really needed this moment because, for a long time since Taylor started running her territory, she doesn't like make an effort to reveal her true identity to people, but she is okay with doing that if someone works for her, and
Hmm.
she kind of has this blaseness about people knowing her identity that it's like, does she really care about this? And I think the fact that she is as upset as she is here, what that says to me is that it was never about people knowing her secret identity. It was about her dad knowing her secret identity.
I'd go even further to say that like I don't think she's uh very she doesn't care as much about her dad's feelings as maybe she should. It's more about having a piece of Taylor left, I think. That's how I see it. She's more scared of like losing her one last tether to Taylor, which is her dad, which is a little bit of an inversion there on how I think her motivation goes.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like before this chapter, she at least had another compartment besides Skitter. She had her Taylor compartment, but she even says to Dragon, she's like, Dragon calls her Skitter. She's like, well, I'm just Taylor now, but I'm probably going to have to retire my civilian name too. Fuck you for that, by the way.
Yeah, which is a good line.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's like I feel like after it's all said and done, now she's really aware of like how much her dad is hurting. But like that wasn't after the fact. Like, oh right, this is worse than I thought it would be. But I feel like deep down inside, she just really wanted to keep that Taylor that she could default and fall back to. Which now it's gone. Which we can talk a little bit more about that. Uh, let's actually jump a little bit behind. The encounter with God King Greg was pretty quick.
Yeah.
So
So it's like we go from like Leviathan to Slaughterhouse 9 to the Coil arc to the Echidna arc, and now we're finally here, arcs 20 through 30, the Greg arc, the final villain of Worm.
It's just kind of weird how he gets dispatched 2 chapters into his 10 arc storyline. But
Well,
I'll,
yeah, it's gonna be
I
10
guess,
arcs of Fallout, you know?
damn, Wildbow, a true genius, huh? So yeah, I'm glad though. That was resolved pretty quickly. But then we get the confrontation with Emma. Man, Emma is such a shit, man. That's why I was saying, I think I said it last time we were talking about Emma and Sophia, where it's like, I'm the kind of person where it's like, you know what, I can understand why you got this way, but you're a piece of shit and you shouldn't do that. A lot of people have gone through terrible things, but you know what society deems as like kind, and you should strive not to be who you're being right now, which is just a snotty person who sees this world falling apart and thinks that by going to the high school that the heroes go to, that is such an important high school, she's the queen of that high school, so she's someone important in the world. It's just such an annoying, small-minded view of the world, and it's very... Oh, man. She's so corrupted now. Like, when she was started bullying Taylor in that flashback, she seemed to have some remorse for it, but now she's, like, even beyond Sophia. Like, she can discard Sophia and not feel bad about it. It just goes to show you how bad she got.
And it's like, knowing what we do now, I imagine Emma's might be being confrontational for a different reason than she was before. Because we know now that the reason she would treat Taylor this way is because she viewed Taylor as weak, and she had gotten to this mindset where she believes the weak they deserve to be treated that way.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of Emma's interlude, we saw that she recognized Taylor as the survivor and someone who is stronger. So now I think like maybe she's trying to prove something to herself by challenging Taylor.
Definitely an insecurity there. You also get the aspect of like being mean to Taylor was a way to appease Sophia. And Sophia's even out of the picture now. So really all she has left is to prove this to herself that she's the survivor and Taylor is still a weak little worm. Take that.
Take that.
Man.
The
confrontation was pretty brutal. Part of it had me going like, Taylor, just fucking walk away, but she just couldn't resist. She just had to take it and like try to get a punch in when she could, a mental punch. But like when Emma says that her dad blames her for her mom's death, that hit me, that hit Taylor. I think that hits every reader pretty hard.
Oh my god, yeah. I was like,
oof.
She could be making that up, but what if she's not?
Taylor's even like, I can see it.
Yeah, and their confrontation kind of ends with Emma does get called into the principal's office, and it seems like everything
for once
Taylor has ever wanted is happening, which at first it feels very much like a wish fulfillment. And I think even Taylor's like, what? This can't be happening. And then I don't know if we get it confirmed, but we get it like all but confirmed that the principal is actually like tied in with the criminal organization that Tattletale's running. So Taylor's like, oh, well, of course there's no actual justice in the world. Of course it's just rigged in my favor.
Oh god, I kind of missed... I knew she thought Tattletale might have something to do with it, but I didn't think she was a straight up... Because the principal says something about, like, we really don't have time to be handling, like, these bullies right now, you know? Like
Which, you know, there's got to be truth to that.
Yeah, maybe. The point is, Dragon and Defiant show up.
Oh my god.
Okay, there's a lot of really cool stuff to this, and a lot of stuff that infuriates me, which I think I told you about a little bit earlier. You were talking about wish fulfillment, right? This was the bully getting what they deserve wish fulfillment, followed by the superhero gets outed in front of their whole class and shows everyone how badass and scary she is, wish fulfillment. And it felt like it knee-jerked from one to the other, because it's like, when Dragon... of course it would happen in school so that Emma and the rest of the classmates can be like, oh my god. But, like, Taylor's dialogue here drove me insane. She starts, like, listing every bad thing she's done that Dragon knows she's done and Defiant knows she's done. So she could have just said you know what I've done, you know how dangerous I can be. But no, she has to list it one by one, just so I feel like it's just so the school can be more scared of her.
And I don't think it's for the school. I think it is for one person in this room. I don't think she would have said that stuff if Emma was not in the room. I think she is saying
You
it.
think so?
I think she is doing it because she knows Emma's listening. And a big reason I think this is because multiple times during this arc, like when she first sees Emma, fuck, when she first sees, oh man, no, I'm not gonna be able to unthink it.
Ema.
When she first sees Emma back in 20.2, and even multiple times during the cafeteria scene, she says stuff like, "Oh man, I couldn't care less about Emma. I wasn't even thinking about her."
Yeah,
Which,
no, yeah, I noticed that, and I guess I took her word for it. But you're right, like that was foolish of me, wasn't it?
that is something like you only consciously say if you're trying to
Yeah.
like convince yourself or others that you're not thinking about someone.
When you put it that way, and it's Taylor being edgy and scary to Emma and not telling us the truth, I think that's more interesting then.
Yeah. And now that I think about it, I don't know if it was those statements where she's listing all the horrible stuff she did, but she punctuates one of those like boasts with making a bug crawl on Emma.
Yeah, she does.
So I think
The
a big
person
part of
she
this
doesn't
is,
care about.
like, she always told herself that she never wants to like get back at the bullies by doing something tangible, like, you know, having bees sting them and stuff. But either consciously or subconsciously here, I think she's like, this is my chance to let Emma know that she fucked with the wrong person.
I like that a lot better. This is why, you have that saying where it's like, if I'm playing a game and I don't like it, you're not going to convince me I don't like it. I wholeheartedly disagree, because stuff like this convinces me I do like stuff that I thought I didn't like.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because it made it seem, to me, it felt like a Wild Bow contrived, like, she's just listing this out so that she can tank her reputation. But if she's doing it because she's in the heat of the moment, just trying to take the advantage to show people, including especially Emma, how scary she is, and she's taking advantage of that, yeah, that's cool. Let's move on to the other juicy parts of that then, that we have addressed. The negative turned positive is the straight up positives of, holy shit, Dinah betraying Taylor.
Yeah, and
Whoa.
like this really hurt Taylor.
This hurt me. But also, like, Dinah sees the writing on the wall in multiple ways. Taylor's a crazy bitch. And Dinah, you gotta imagine, like, what is her plan here? Why did she feel so important to out Taylor,
Yeah.
I hope we get some insight of her motivations. I'm sure we will. We're talking about Wild Bow here. He's one of those masters of connecting stuff.
The master. Yeah, I'm sure Dinah has some kind of plan.
So, I'm gonna show my hand here.
All right.
There's a few things about Worm that I knew would happen before I started. I think there's like 5 or 6 major ones, and we're almost past all of them.
Yeah, I think at some point you had like hopped onto the wiki to like look at some pages, and you're like, oh, that's a thing.
Yeah, well, some of them were like passengers, or like just seeing that word and just got a lot of thoughts in my head. One of them was like Eidolon potentially being a villainous figure, and now we know that he's in Cauldron, and like the Triumvirate are definitely going to be important for later arcs. I'm sure of it. Especially Alexandria. I hope Legend doesn't fall in with these bad kids. Oh, I like Legend.
No, he's such a good boy.
He's such a good boy. One of them is, if I recall, Taylor changes her name, which she actually says she wants to change her name in this arc, to, it's either like Silk Spinner or like Weaver or something, and she joins the Ward, I think, or the Protectorate. I think I saw that right. So in my mind, I'm like, when I saw her working with Clock Blocker and I see her relationship with Miss Militia, I'm like, ooh, yeah, okay, that'll be cool. Like, I'm really liking their interplay. And then Defiant is like, maybe I was too hard on Skitter, and even Dragon feels bad about outing her.
So it's just like, man, look at how well she's working with all these heroes.
And then this shit happens, man. And then Arc 21 stuff happens, and I'm just like, oh no. How are we ever going to get to that point right now? Like, so spoiler or not, like, I am invested to see how the story could possibly get there from this point.
Oh yeah.
And I have to imagine Dinah set this in motion so she would make that switch. That's my guess right now. Which isn't a very good prediction on account that I know that the switch is coming. So I don't really give myself points if that's the case. But
I guess the prediction is like...
if I had to guess. Yeah. Man, God, Defiant and Dragon are really cool, man. Defiant's like top 3 boys for me.
You gotta love our boy.
I really like him. And man, you could tell they didn't want to do this, but the percentages of them doing it here were the best, so they had to. And Tag is forcing them to also do it this way.
Dramatic irony is like really painful for us because Taylor's like, I thought you would be above doing this, and Dragon's like, I am. I didn't want to do this, but I was ordered to. And Taylor's like, you don't have to do what they say. You made a choice to follow this order. And Dragon's like, it's not that easy, and there's more to it than that. And Taylor's like,
it is that easy.
It's simple. You just either do it or you don't. And because like Taylor just doesn't know what we know, and you imagine it's hurting Dragon on the inside.
It's really, man, Taylor is really difficult when it comes to this because up until very recently, no one could see her side. But also, she makes it so difficult for herself to see the other side. She's just like, there's bullies, and you guys don't fix anything. But it's like, but Taylor, that you can't just burn it all to the ground. You have to have some compromise. And I don't know, she might start going in that direction. I'm very worried for this girl. I want to back it up to the Emma thing just for a second because I missed a note here. Emma says that if Taylor stood up to them, Sophia would have let them be friends. I don't believe that for a goddamn second.
No, there's no way.
Okay. I'm just glad we're both on the same page with that.
No.
So Defiant openly apologizes to Taylor. She does not take this the way I wanted her to. So that's just heartbreaking, man. The fact that, like, he was humbled by his experiences with Mannequin and just becoming this cool cyborg man. And, I mean, the whole idea that he got barred from being in the Protectorate in the first place. I just think it's such a cool way for him to step back and be like, man, things just aren't that simple.
Yeah, and I think it's just like a really fun flip on like some of their early interactions where, like, near the beginning of the story, it would be cases where Taylor's like, oh, just hear me out, throw me a bone, like, let me explain.
Exactly.
And, he would be like, no, I'm not, I don't have to consider this. He's like, no, I'm not going to let you do that. And now he's here and he's like,
throw me a bone. Yeah,
he's like, you need to, just hear me out. I have a good reason for doing this. And she's like, there's no good reason you could be doing that.
Yeah, when Taylor comes up with her idea to escape, she has this line where she's like, I know everyone will be safe because Defiant is here, and, like, I'm gonna make these people, like, be a human shield for me to get out of here. And they'll be safe because Defiant is here, and even though he's not a good guy, but he is a hero. And
yeah, like, they're not gonna risk, like, hurting a student trying to apprehend her.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So she knows that there's good in there. All right, 20.A was the interviews. I thought this was kind of weird. I didn't need, like, half the chapter to be them setting up the interview. Like, I guess it was to show how reporting works in this world of heroes, but, like,
yeah. the real reason we like this chapter is seeing
The-
all the people watch the
The
broadcast.
second half, yeah, that was a very One Piece world reacts to Luffy's adventure chapter. Particularly, I like how Dragon and Defiant say they'll leave after the next Endbringer attacks. So, really setting up the story for some sort of future. Like the Protectorate's not going to survive much longer at this rate, and maybe a new group will be formed. Maybe these two will be good enough to just be on their own. We got some stuff with Jack and Bonesaw. I'm not excited for the Slaughterhouse 9 clones. There's this thing like the clones in the Echidna arc only really worked for me because they had alternate abilities, which I'm sure the 9 clones will, but also because there came a lot of good story aspects from it, like Taylor's identity getting exposed. We got to see Taylor's clone argue with Tattletale's clone, for example, stuff like that. And also just the main antagonist of Echidna was interesting, and now you were already invested in her, right? The idea of like there's this thing in Worm where similar power sets are reused time after time after time, and it's kind of that's one of the aspects that weighs down on me with all the fighting. The idea of having like Slaughterhouse 9 clones that Bonesaw is making worries me about like future fights with them. It's just gonna be overwhelming amounts of like Bonesaw regeneration and fucking crawlers and mannequins crawling all over the place. We'll see. I won't draw judgment until I see how it's actually portrayed, but my leaning off the bat is that I'm not super excited at the prospect.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if this turns out how we think it will.
Yes.
I do wanted to while we're kind of talking about this scene. I forgot until rereading this that Hook Wolf is in this scene.
Yeah.
And I really liked it because the last time we talked about Hook Wolf was when we saw him with the 9, and like I think we brought up how his ideologies that we initially saw in his
warped.
kind of contrast with his actions when he joins the 9.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that I wasn't entirely sure, but that I suspected that it was because I think Panacea said that if someone was not cured of the miasma, it would start to damage like every area of their brain. And I really like that we got to see some lines from Hook Wolf here where he obviously knows like Jack's plan now, and he's like, I don't think this is the path that we should be taking. And he's like, he says he can't even articulate why he doesn't like what they're doing. He says his thoughts are still cloudy, and I think that's why I think that he's not like sound of mind.
Yeah, I think this is a soft confirmation for it. I would like a hard I always love it hard, but
Like it hard.
yeah. This was. I'm glad you brought this up because I forgot to write this down when I was listening to it. But yeah, I'm glad
glad we got to see your boy.
There's some Hook Wolf still in there. I mean, not that Hook Wolf was ever a great person, but I feel like I have a little bit more of a warm affinity for him than maybe most.
I like that. I just like that there's a part of him that looks at this plan Jack has for all these clones, and he's like, "No, I don't like this." And he even says that I don't think he's against like a large scale battle, because he says like I'd rather have a Ragnarok right before he gets cut off, which like a Ragnarok is still like
end time war,
an end time war, but I think it has like a much more honorable connotation.
That's totally in line with his character. If this is the evil, like full out evil version of Hook Wolf, it would be one that wants to do honorable badass battling as opposed to horrific murders and terrorism.
Yeah.
A Cord interlude. All right. I didn't like being a Cord's head, man. This guy's fucking he's frustrating to be inside his head. Just villains that kill their henchmen for not being perfect. I just don't like villains that will willy-nilly kill henchmen unless like it's really written around to where they can get away with it or like it's somehow cool, which is really rare for me. But he's just that kind of guy. Like if he was gonna fucking kill Sundancer for just showing up. And,
Yeah, Accord is Worm's James Bond villain, I guess.
I guess so, right? I do like that idea of him like curing world hunger, but he showed up late to the meeting, and that's kind of like the stem of like his neurosis, where like he's just this crazy OCD man, very punctual now. But yeah, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Accord, but I do like what he could possibly bring to the story. And there's this. It ends on a note that like by taking over Coil's organization, Skitter has their inherited will of Cauldron and Coil now, without her even realizing. And I'm like, what could this possibly mean, and why is this so important? And that's what I'm looking forward to finding out.
Hey. Not
Bradley,
bad.
do you have anything for Arc 20?
I'm looking to see if I had any other things. I do like in 20.1, Taylor gets to interact with her dad a lot more. And through their conversations, I think each of them have grown in at least some ways since they kind of last lived together. Because I think she is staying at the house now.
Yeah, she moved back in for a little bit.
And they have this question, or they have this kind of conversation where, you know, whenever she like fully decided to split from her dad, it was because he's like you're gonna sit here right now. I need you to tell me everything that's going on. Like we're gonna do this, and I think he's not doing that anymore. Like that is the strategy he took there is certainly not what Taylor needed. But of course, I don't know if he could have known that. In any case, he has a very different approach to dealing with her now, where he's like, if I asked you to go back to school, would you? And she's like, yeah, I would, but that's not where I want to be right now. And he leaves it at that. And I like the way this is phrased. He says, thank you, but Taylor says it wasn't a response to my statement. It's almost like he's like, oh, thank God that didn't scare her off. But so on one hand, I like that Danny has kind of grown in a little bit. Like he knows how to like talk to his daughter in a way that's not going to scare her off. But it also makes me sad that I think in a way Taylor
Has
did
one.
this to him, that her own dad has to step around everything now to talk to his own daughter because of her.
He can't even really father her in any way. Like she is just so. He is hanging on just to have her in his life because she is super willing to completely leave him if he's not doing it the way she wants.
Yeah.
Which is again just reinforcing that idea that I think she cared more about Taylor than she did about Danny.
Yeah. So I liked getting to see their interactions, and I guess the last thing I had for this arc was, as far as like payoffs for kind of long running back burner things. One payoff I liked in this arc was it has to deal with reputation, where Taylor does a lot of like very showy, violent things as the warlord of her territory. And a big reason for this is whenever they initially kind of started their territory takeover, Brian gave her this speech about reputation.
Yeah.
And I think it might have even been before that, back when they were just doing regular Undersider stuff, where he always stressed how important reputation was, where like if you ever get into a place where you need extra leverage in a deal, or if you're in a situation where you can't fight, reputation could totally it could totally make or break the situation.
Yeah, and it's a good point.
Yeah, and we've seen Taylor kind of do this. She does this kind of rule through fear thing that she even consciously says she learned from Lung and Bakuda. Bakuda said it was like her whole it was like her whole like way of leading, is that you only really have to do one of these terribly, horribly violent things once. You don't have to do it every time. You just have to make people know that you would do it.
Jesus Christ.
And it kind of works for Taylor here because she brings it up in her mind, and I think out loud, that she's like, you're not going after me because you think I would hurt the people in this room.
Oh my god.
Which it sort of works in her favor because she's able to draw out this conversation. They don't just pounce on her. They're like, well, we know she could hurt the people in this room. We're not entirely sure if she would hurt the people in this room, but she might. And I like that. I think like a chapter after, not a chapter, like a paragraph after she thinks about Bakuda, she then thinks about Jack, because she's like, at the end of the day, Jack, like, it's not his power that makes people shit their pants. It's all the presence about him and what he's done when people see him.
Yeah.
And so she's like, I need to use that here. So I think Brian's like repeated speeches about the importance of reputation finally got a payoff here, in addition to like the Danny stuff that we talked about. It's kind of a small back burner thing, but it's there.
It just, you bringing all that up just makes me think like she's on such a slippery slope. It's like almost as slippy as Alvida from One Piece.
Oh yeah.
Jesus, man, how bad can this get before someone gets this girl in the wards and sets her on the straight and narrow, if ever?
Somebody stop this girl.
Yeah, honestly. On the topic of Jack's powers not being scary, hey, be careful with spoilers in the comments. Where one of you graciously spoiled an aspect of Jack's powers. Maybe it made Bradley write an essay, so I don't know what the fuck you did. But just keep in mind, I'm a first time reader / listener. So yeah. There you go. There's our
take
worm
that, you
talk.
worms.
Take it all.
I don't know what else do we do?
We walk away now, Bradley.
Okay.